at all times. Keep them in mute and your video cameras as well throughout the program. We recommend that you use your side by side with speaker setting or video option so you can see both the speakers and the presentation. And kindly use the chat function for your questions and comments. As ideas come to you, please feel free to type them down in the chat. We can read them at the open forum, or we can ask you to read them yourselves at the open forum. So, thank you very much for listening to the reminders. As we start this conference now at some time, may I invite everyone to please put yourself in a disposition of silence and join us for an invocation to be led by Miss Maria Margarita Cristina Lacdao from the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. Chris?
Thank you, Doc Nikki. Again, we put ourselves in reflective mode in silence. Let us give thanks for the world around us. Thanks for all the creatures, stones, and plants. Let us learn their lessons and seek their truths so that their path might be ours and that we might live in harmony, a better life. May the earth continue to live. May the heavens above continue to live. May the rains continue to dampen the land. May the wet forest continue to grow. Then the flowers shall bloom, and we people shall live again.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was a beautiful invocation. And now, to welcome us in today's conference, as he has done so for the last 5 years, I present to you the person at the helm of the ASEAN University Network, which is what many know of already, an intergovernmental organization under the ASEAN Secretariat. AUN's Executive Director, Dr. Choltis Diratiti, who is also a lecturer in politics at the Faculty of Political Science of Chulalongkorn University in Thailand, will give us his welcome remarks. Please let us welcome him with a round of applause. Dr. Choltis, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us this Wednesday morning for the fifth conference of the AUN-EEC, the ASEAN University Network on Ecological Education and Culture, was created to support the policies and initiatives of the ASEAN on promoting sustainable development through environmental education and public participation. I'm very excited to have witnessed the journey of this network the Antonio de Manila is hosting. In 2020, we started discussing bringing down sustainability to the individual level by tackling cultivating ecological mindset and lifestyles. The year after, in 2021, we venture into a more systemic approach, with the theme being focused on building an ecosystem that is ready for ecological education and culture. In 2022, as we realize that we are easing out of the pandemic, the conference looked back on the valuable practices on sustainability which were propagated in the challenging pandemic context, and how these can be used as we look forward into the new normal. Then in 2023, the theme alludes to the call for ecosystem restoration and reconciliation, which might have taken the backseat during the peak of the pandemic. This year, in the fifth conference, the theme is called Rewilding the City. We focus on urban sustainability. The conference will feature speakers from ASEAN universities and organizations discussing urban sustainability with their respective spheres of influence. Cities are an important topic in advancing sustainability. However, these cities are complex entities. Given this, the conference organizers, headed by the team of Dr. Emmanuel De Locado of AUN-EEC of Ateneo de Manila University, and Dr. Muhammad Ali Beravi of AUN Sustainable City and Urban Development of Universitas Indonesia, wanted to show that sustainability is best achieved through multilateral cooperations. Two active AUN networks are working together to advance the intersections of their respective advocacy. Because together we are stronger, and that is the core of ASEAN. Approaches may differ between different countries, and these are learning opportunities for us and a greater reason for us to come together in events like this one. AUN-EEC and AUN-SCUD found a common ground on their initiative and did not see their advocacy, namely ecological education and sustainable cities, as competing topics. The network saw that these two advocacies have a common point of intersection, and they would need each other's viewpoint to find answers to their questions. This conference truly is an outstanding example of cooperation within and with the AUN thematic networks. This morning, we will hear two keynote talks and a panel discussion featuring academics, government bodies, and non-governmental organizations and community champions, making efforts in furthering urban sustainability in the academe and on the ground. This quest to return to promote ecological education and ecological culture as we navigate the competing interests and priorities in the city is of paramount importance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Choltis. You see, the ASEAN University Network on Ecological Education and Culture is housed in Ateneo de Manila University, and this year's conference is organized jointly in partnership between the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability and the Center for Sustainable Infrastructure Development of Universitas Indonesia. And just as Dr. Choltis mentioned, you could see that this is a product of cooperation. Let us listen now to the opening remarks from the president of Ateneo de Manila University, Father Roberto C. Yap of the Society of Jesus. Let's hear his message.
A warm welcome to all the participants of the 2024 AUN-EEC Conference on Ecological Education and Culture. This year's theme, Rekindling the City, is a vital reminder of the great importance that cities hold as the main economic, cultural, and environmental hubs of nations worldwide, especially in Southeast Asia. The UN Habitat's World Cities Report 2022 stated that cities are here to stay, and the future of humanity is undoubtedly urban, but not exclusively in large metropolitan areas. From 56% in 2021, the world is projected to urbanize to 68% by 2050, increasing to 2.2 billion urban residents, most of which will be in Africa and Asia. This rapid urbanization, expected to take place within the next 30 years, will impact not only the environmental crisis we are already facing, it will also continue to affect global and regional politics, economic policies, our everyday socio-cultural affairs, and the quality of life of those living in the global South. We all have a critical role in addressing this daunting challenge. This conference punctuates the role of humans individually and collectively in embracing sustainability in the city. It is also a way for us to commit to becoming better stewards of our planet and all of us who live and will live in it. As an institution of higher education, Ateneo de Manila is committed to forging paths towards sustainable development. We are proud to be part of the first cohort of colleges and universities worldwide participating in Pope Francis's 7-year journey towards integral ecology. In doing so, we hope to do our part in championing this worthy and necessary cause. And so I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for dedicating and committing yourselves to help care for our common home. Our friends from AUN-EEC, the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability, and our colleagues at AUN-SCUD and the Center for Sustainable Infrastructure Development at Universitas Indonesia have organized a wide-ranging selection of case studies that will enable participants to learn more about the threats and problems facing urban sustainability. This is a great opportunity for us all to engage in insightful discourse and discussion on how best to solve these threats and problems, as well as to glean new insights and perspectives in ecological and cultural education. Our collective mission as members of the AUN-EEC remains true and relevant: to nurture graduates with ecological mindsets and to promote environmentally responsible practices and behavior among our citizens, to heed the cry of the earth, as Pope Francis says, in order to ensure a brighter, safer, and more dignified future for our planet and its people. I wish you a productive and enlightening conference. Thank you and good morning.
Just listen to the remarks from the president of Ateneo de Manila University, that was Father Bobby. Yeah. And now, dear participants of this conference, after hearing the opening remarks from Dr. Choltis and the welcome remarks from Father Bobby, it is our turn to do our own opening number as a collective. I invite all participants to please open your video cameras, because let's give each other a welcoming smile as we um, a, keep the tradition alive. For the past 5 years, you see, Dr. Choltis went back and talked about the other conferences and the other themes. Now, every year we take a picture, and we'll keep doing so for posterity. So may I invite everybody to please now start turning on your cameras. If you can't, it's okay. But those who can, please do, and please give us your smile. No? Somebody will assist us in taking this photo. Mark, can you please take over and walk us through the picture taking?
Hi everyone. Okay, so we are 69 in the room and we have 3 frames. So let's hold our smile. So this is for frame 1. Okay, so everyone, 1, 2, 3. Wait, sorry. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Um, frame 2. 1, 2, 3. Um, frame 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much for that souvenir photo. I would like to give it back to Dr. Nikki.
All right. Thank you very much. Welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you for those beautiful smiles. Welcome to the 2024 AUN-EEC Conference on Ecological Education and Culture. I'm Dr. Nikki Carci Cruz. I am chair of the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies in Ateneo de Manila, and I'm also a member of the AUN-EEC Steering Committee. I am very grateful and very excited to be your moderator for this morning's plenary session. Did you see the conference poster or the cover in the book of abstracts, or the design? That was designed by the communications officer, Denise Gallias, of the Ateneo Institute for Sustainability. That should give us a hint for the theme of the conference, which of course Dr. Choltis already mentioned earlier. The theme, rewilding the city, is a very timely topic. Well, to begin with, it's not the first time we're talking about this. It builds upon an entire decade's conversation. The UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration seeks to really put into focus this topic from 2021 to 2030 for this entire decade. It was the banner theme of last year's conference, so we are continuing this thread of thought. And it's also timely because the United Nations Environment Program's Generation Restoration Project, that's ongoing from 2023 to 2025, emphasizes restoration and reconciliation with nature, particularly in urban settings. And it's highlighting the role of cities. In Southeast Asia, in particular, how can we be exemplars? The goal is to empower stakeholders of cities to develop a mindset of sustainability of restoration initiatives, even in a tension filled urban landscape. Rewilding the city will mean rewiring our minds. The city is always a place of contestations, of aspirations, and these contestations need to be resolved in some fashion. And we need to develop a kind of culture that will allow people to move forward. This is something that was also already mentioned by Dr. Choltis in his opening remarks. So, this whole focus on environmental movement in an urban setting requires educational education, which is because we have an inescapable embeddedness of human beings in our natural settings, and we have responsibilities that arise from this relationship. So, our morning session is a very loaded one. We have two keynotes. The first one is on the topic of cities and environment, and the other one is on the topic of cities and culture. Following these enriching keynotes, we will transition into a panel discussion. We invited four panelists to expand on the themes of environmental education and cultural integration by sharing their innovative and effective approaches and practices that are being implemented across Southeast Asia so that there would be a mainstreaming of sustainability efforts and promotion of resilient urban development. We will have a break at noon for lunch. Then we shall have in the afternoon four parallel sessions covering an array of topics. AUN-EEC is happy to report that we have received a record high number of submission of abstracts for the parallel sessions this year. While the talks are expected to be factual and data driven, the AUN-EEC network also puts premium on ecological education which uses language that engages the public and is easily understood by the general public regardless of their nationality or language. Now, we also have exciting news for all our presenters at this conference. After the conference, you may opt to submit the full paper of your presentation so that it can be considered for publication. Authors of accepted abstracts may submit their full manuscript for publication in the special issue of CSID Journal of Infrastructure Development, which is a peer reviewed and indexed journal hosted by the Universitas Indonesia. It is also indexed and abstracted in a number of systems. You may submit your papers until the end of September. AUN-EEC Secretariat will send you an email after this conference. So we now have a special issue for our conference papers. What a very exciting fifth conference indeed. This conference was organized or is organized by the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability, which houses the ASEAN University Network on Ecological Education and Culture, and the AUN Thematic Network on Sustainable Cities and Urban Development, which is housed at the Center for Sustainable Infrastructure Development in Universitas Indonesia. Members of the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability and Universitas Indonesia are on standby to help attend to the needs of speakers and participants. Please don't hesitate to type your questions in the chat box. And now that we know what's ahead for this whole day, we can proceed without further ado to our first keynote lecture. Our first keynote lecture is on the topic of cities and environment. Our speaker will discuss how educating the youth is crucial to ecology and biodiversity conservation. As AUN-EEC believes in the fresh ideas and perspectives from the youth on how to approach the wicked problems of this planet, for it is, after all, the youth who are inheriting this earth and its custodianship. Our first keynote speaker inspires, leads, and engages the youth. Let me introduce to you our speaker. Dr. Maxine Mo is a biology lecturer at the National University of Singapore in the Department of Biological Sciences. She has more than 10 years of research experience in aquatic biology, specifically in phytoplankton and zooplankton ecology, and she has been a lecturer since 2019. She has worked on the ecology of several cyanobacterial taxa, phytoplankton and zooplankton interactions, microplastic impacts, and eutrophication and algal bloom mitigation using macrophytes in Singapore's reservoirs and coastal environment. She teaches various biology and ecology courses, general biology, evolutionary biology, freshwater biology for undergraduate students, and she also teaches several courses, freshwater conservation, food security, and sustainability in internships for the master's program in the NUS, in the National University of Singapore on biodiversity conservation and sustainability. Apart from her career, she has also been volunteering as a member of the Care for Creation Committee at Caritas in Singapore since 2023. Together with the rest of the committee, she has planned several Laudato Si activities for the Care for Creation for the parishes and the Archdiocese in Singapore to deliver her keynote lecture entitled How Can We Protect What We Do Not See? The Importance of Field Trips for Ecological Education and Advocacy in Youth in an Urbanized City. Let us all please give the warmest welcome we can muster, a round of virtual applause for Dr. Maxine Mo. Dr. Max, you have 20 minutes. I will alert you when you have 2 minutes left.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy and really honored to be here. I'm just gonna share my slides, and then you guys can let me know if you can see it. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Not
But
yet.
it's not in. Oh, let me just switch it. Can you see the correct screen?
Yes, it's now in presentation mode. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, maybe I'll just jump straight into it because I know I have 20 minutes and I tend to talk a lot, so I need to do this fast. Okay, thank you so much for having me at the AU-EEC conference on ecological education and culture. And thank you so much, Nikki, for saying all of that about our environment and how we need to care for the earth and care for the planet. And you talked a little bit about it. So I'm really happy to kind of follow up with my talk. So my name is Dr. Maxine Mao. I'm a lecturer in the National University of Singapore. And I wanted to talk about the importance of field trips for ecological education and advocacy in the youth in an urbanized city like Singapore. So one thing about Singapore, and I think a lot of you here, maybe if you haven't been to Singapore or you've been once or twice, you know that it's a very urbanized city. So maybe if you see that I have the word field trips there, you'll say, oh, field trips to where? The building? No. So I'm showing you some photos here of some of the field trips that I've brought some students on and some youth on. And there is nature here in Singapore. There are many nature areas actually. And I feel that my purpose and my job is really to bring the students out to these nature areas so they can see that Singapore is not just an completely urban area. It is actually an area where we have a lot of green space, be it natural or manicured and man-made. So I'm just going to dive right into it. So the outline of my talk is basically I'm going to talk about really first, why do we need field trips in formal education? So what are the purpose of field trips? Like going back to the pedagogy of teaching ecology, why do we need to have field trips? Next, I talk about field trips for ecological advocacy in the youth. So that's the youth before they enter university. Some of the lessons that I've learned when I've brought students out on these field trips and planning the field trips and what goes into it and what have I done. And then finally, I look at the future and we can have a further discussion about where do we go from here. But I'll give you some suggestions. Okay, so before we start, I would like to engage all of you in a little small poll everywhere. So could you just scan the QR code that you see on your screen? And I'd like you to just recall a lesson that you can vividly remember from your youth. So this means your pre-university years. So the ages of 7 to 18 years old. What do you remember from there? Can you access the Poll EV? I hope you can.
Mine requires me to register for credit.
Oh no, you can just say, I think you can just put your name or just skip it. Yes, yeah, you can just skip it. Don't worry, if they ask you for your name, you just skip it. I don't really need your name for this. Yeah, I just want to get a feel of what you really remember. So some of the options that I've put here will be options like in grade school or in primary school in Singapore, we have classroom lessons. We have actually caring for the garden. I don't know if they do that anymore but in my time, that's what they did. That's what we did. We cared for the garden. We have physical education lessons where we are outside. We also have learning journeys, field trips. So these are the ones that we kind of remember. And yeah, so I just want to get a feel of where everyone is coming from. Okay, great. I'm getting some responses. Thanks for that. So I can see it's mostly split between classroom lessons and field trips. Slightly higher for field trips, and then some have a very vivid memory of caring for the garden. If you have a few options, you can just take the one that you feel the most strongly for. Okay, great. Thank you so much for responding to that. This is just to give you an idea of kind of like how you learn. So it's kind of like a survey to really think about how you learn as a person, as an individual. So we have it split between classroom lessons, and then a few people say that they care for the garden, and others say they like or they remember the field trips and the journeys that they took to nature. So that's really great. And I'm just going to give you a little bit about my own experience of field trips. So of course for me, you know that for me, what kind of lesson I vividly recall is really field trips and learning journeys to nature. So just to give you an overview of my own experience of field trips as a student. So I started doing field trips when I was probably 17 years old, a little bit before that, because we had a Young Explorers program when I was in primary school. So this Young Explorers program allows us to actually get a young botanist badge, or like a young zoologist. So that was my young botanist badge, and they give you a list of tasks that you have to complete, and this is outside of the school curriculum. And I feel that this really influenced me as a scientist, and as a student growing up, I really felt like, oh, I could really do this, I could really be this scientist. And then when I was 17, I actually went to the mangroves. So you can see me in this photo over here. I'm knee deep in mud, and this is what I was doing when I was 17. And I thank my teachers for actually encouraging us and guiding us and bringing us out to the mangroves to study horseshoe crabs. So all of my field experiences were fun and tiring, but they were very influential for me as a scientist and educator to get to where I am now. So I just want you to guess. Maybe you can guess. You can put your little guess in the chat. Which of the field trips or the projects do you think had the biggest impact on me? You can put it in the chat. Any idea? Okay, I'm just gonna read the chat. So someone said Singapore Youth Festival, someone said teaching in Tioman, someone said the Youth Science Festival, Fuel in Nature. Yep. So everyone has a different suggestion, and I think I want to give it to the people who really understood that it was the Singapore Youth Science Festival actually, and the Young Explorers program. And it's no surprise because these field trips happened when I was so young, when I was between 9 years old to 17 years old, because this is the time that as a student, you are really absorbing all of that information that is being given to you, and you're trying to decide for your life what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And actually, I decided this very, very young. When I was about 11 years old, I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to work outside. I never wanted to work in an office. And I made this decision for myself very early on because of these field trips and because of these experiences that I had in nature. So what does that mean for field trips for youth? So taking from my own experiences, I started to realize that a lot of the field trips that we take as youth, that means before we even come to university, have a deep impact on us. And I found this really interesting paper from Flowers and Bayer about this program that actually trains pre university students, high school students. It involves them in field trips with a scientific purpose, and it really encouraged them to have um, uh, basically consider a career in ecology from a very young age, kind of like what I did for my small informal field trips. And the students learn by doing, okay? And then what eventually they realized was that that hands-on approach to ecology was very, very important, because the scientific background and the knowledge and the all of that hardcore studying can come later on, but there has to be that hands-on experience first that will drive the rest of your motivation. um Also, that this study also realized that there's really a necessity for a diversity of scientists to study growing impacts on ecosystems. It should not just be allowed for, let's say, the higher level, higher income level, or for people who can afford to go to university. Many students, especially in this study, maybe many of them did not go on to university, but they still pursued careers in ecology, maybe as assistants and so on. So all of these types of jobs are valuable and are necessary for what we do. And it's also because many of us are still living, or many of us are living in urbanized cities. So in order for us to care for creation or care for the earth, we need to have some sort of interaction with the earth, especially from an early age, because this influences the trajectory and the rest of our lives. Okay, so then it started to help me to think a little bit more. How can we encourage our youth to feel connected to nature? And how can we do that the way that it impacted me and the way that I was motivated to embark on this career? So then I realized that it has to start really, really young. And this is what this study talks about as well. So this SIFT and TURF just stand for Shaw Institute for Field Training and the Tyson Environmental Research Fellowship. But this can be basically a roadmap for other studies as well, other countries. So I'm going to go in to talk about also, why do we need field trips for formal education? So firstly, we want to introduce ecological students. So this is coming up to the university level, to biodiversity and ecology firsthand. We want to link theory with practice. So we can't just be teaching them things in the classroom, but without showing them exactly what we're talking about in the field. It also helps with this experiential learning. The students are able to retain information better. And it's very effective for students who live in urbanized cities and they just lack the opportunity to maybe go overseas or go for overseas field trips or go for holidays. But at least we can show them what is in their backyard here, right here in Singapore. So you can see these are just some of the classes I've brought on field trips, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in the later slides. So the question we can ask ourselves is, are field trips really necessary for ecological modules? And this is something that the administration will always ask me, like, can you cut down the field trips? And I always tell them that, no, it's very, very, very important to gain that interest in ecology and biodiversity. And it will inspire students to pursue research and management of these either water bodies or national parks after they graduate. So this is just to show you the concept of how we translate those field trips to learning outcomes. So we talk about active learning. We can actually do a lot of active learning in the field. So we can break them up into groups. We can bring them to go and collect certain, for example, certain insects in the stream or plankton. We're using a plankton net. So there's many ways that we can help them do active learning, where they're not just sitting in a classroom and having that passive one-way traffic of information from the lecturer to the student. Some of the possible drawbacks, though, I will admit that it's very hard logistically. Sometimes it's very challenging to plan the field trip. It is, you have to go out, you have to have additional funding to pay for the buses, you have to have additional time to apply for permits. So I wrote here that these are the two possibly in Singapore that kind of prevent maybe some lecturers from doing this type of field trip because it just creates a lot of work for us on our side. And then sometimes they're also worried about the student maturity level. Are they going to understand what we're trying to teach them? What is the interest level of even being in the field? Because a lot of times what you'll meet is a bit of a resistance from the students. So a lot of students will come to you and they'll tell you like, it's very hot, I need this, or I'm tired. And once you overcome this barrier, or you get the students to the field and they realize the value and kind of the joy of being out in nature, I think that all of those other small problems or issues sort of start to fade into the background. Because once you're out there, it's very different. You're not really thinking about, okay, am I going to get credit from this? Am I going to learn? You're just very absorbed in the doing of the work. That's what I really love about field trips. So these are just some of the field trips I've been involved in over the years for formal education, meaning in university. So I used to help in a level 2 introduction ecology class. So that was level LSM 2251, where we brought students out to the field. We introduced them to ecological habitats first and the method. So this was a bit on the surface level. We didn't expect much out of them. We just wanted to train them, bring them to the field and get them to experience it. And then for the higher level courses that I still teach right now, we actually get them to learn very detailed methods. We get them to embark on very small little field research projects. There's even a course where we bring them to Tioman, as I showed you earlier. I did that as a graduate student, where we bring undergraduates to Tioman and they spend 1 week doing intensive field work. So that is a hardcore, really introduction to fieldwork, but also kind of a quite a steep learning curve for those that are not really used to that kind of work. And then finally, we bring them to all these types of freshwater habitats, and I do this for my freshwater biology class because we want to introduce them to Singapore's natural as well as man-made habitats. So I also bring a lot of field trips, a lot of students to field trips for the master's courses. So currently we run a master's course in the department, and it's called the Masters in Biodiversity Conservation and Sustainability. So it's very good for students who have no background of ecology coming into the masters. They come from engineering side, from business, even from arts and social science. So it's important for them to get that ecological background and for understanding how to act in the field, what do we do in the field, and to really start their interest and start their experience. So usually the learning goals for these types of field trips will be habitat assessment, conservation value, for them to estimate the conservation value of a habitat, to look at ecosystem services of a habitat. How does that habitat provide us with potable water, for example? How does it provide us with recreational space? And also to evaluate this habitat in terms of how good is it at providing us with these ecosystem services? Could it be improved in any way? So this is when we are talking about higher order thinking already. We're getting students to act in the role of managers for different park scenarios, because eventually once they graduate, they go on to these types of jobs. So you want to give them this what if scenario. What if you were the manager of this water body? What are you going to do about this particular issue you are facing, for example? So these are just some of the classes that I teach currently: freshwater conservation and field techniques. So another thing about these field trips is that you can actually if you don't have enough time within the curriculum, you can actually do something called self-directed field trips. And these field trips are really, really useful for increasing the student initiative. There's a greater independence of the students. The students learn more and gain better insight into the activities. And you set assignments based on these field trips, and you let them go to wherever they like to go. So this is one of the field trips, or the self-directed field trips, that I assigned in freshwater conservation. So I get them to evaluate a freshwater habitat anywhere in Singapore. And I will just ask them, I just need to approve of their habitat choice, that it has fresh water there, that they can evaluate it. No sampling is allowed. So they just need to go there, have a day trip. Really, it's really about 2 to 3 hours where they go with their friends, they evaluate the habitat itself for the ecosystem services, and then they come back and they give a presentation about it. So this is just some of my students from 2021 who went to a particular field trip in Jurong Lake Gardens. Another thing I started to do was that I started to realize that even if we're bringing students to the field, and then making them write an essay after that, like how are they going to translate what they found in the field to, let's say, a more general audience, the general public? How are we going to help them build on their science communication skills? A lot of our students coming out of our program are not going to actually go into academia. So we want to train them in a more general aspect, also to think about how are they going to protect these environments. In order to protect a lot of the environments they know about or they learn about, you need to have effective communication skills. It's so important in this day and age. So I assigned a social media assignment for this particular field trip. The students go out to Jurong Lake Gardens again, and they go and sample. This time they get to sample. They sample all of the plankton there. They do the chlorophyll A analysis. They do a lot of high-level analysis, but I get them to actually translate that into assignments. So then you can see that we have an Instagram page, and I get them to curate their Instagram post. They choose pictures, they choose videos, they write captions, and then I post it on the page and I'll grade them on their posts. So this is some of the student work from the last year, and the students have told me that they had a lot of fun actually creating these posts. So now moving on to field trips for ecological advocacy in youth, because as I told you, I started with that, and that's how I even got interested in becoming a scientist, becoming an educator and a lecturer. So all of these trips actually are for younger students or younger kids even. So I've carried out intertidal trips for a different girls club. So the Hillcrest Girls Club, they were about 8 to 9 years old. We went out to the intertidal area around 6 o'clock in the morning. These girls woke up and they came, and I spoke to them a little bit about the intertidal area. I spoke to them a little bit about what animals they're going to find. And I also talked to them a little bit about Care for Creation, about Laudato Si. So I try to link all of them together.
Sorry,
Finally, yes, sorry.
Dr. Meeks, 2 minutes.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna go through this really fast. We can discuss the rest later. I've also done some beach cleanups for the Caritas board and also for different parishes as well. So, and then we've also done tree planting, but I'm gonna go really quickly because I want to finish. So I found out that these field trips can really help help kids to improve their understanding of the world around them. They learn to appreciate nature, and some youth were so excited to be by the beach because you can understand that they have limited opportunity to do so. Going to the field also helps them to face the environmental issues that we are currently facing, and they get to see it at a very young age, which makes them think, what am I going to do about it? Right? So with the fact that there's pollution, there's habitat destruction, and there's loss of species. So some of the lessons that I've learned through these field trips is that field trips are vital to ecological education, especially in urbanized cities. It's such a good way to engage students and promote student-led activities. It's also a great way to experiment with different assignment types, as what I did for videos and for social media. And it's a very good way to connect youth with the natural environment and get them to care for something, because they need to be able to see and experience it before they will care for it. So looking ahead, where do we go? As an educator, I feel that we need to find more ways to bring students on our field trips, to guide them in the field, and to give them let them lead field-based projects. And as a student, I think the biggest advice I have for you is to get involved, to join as a volunteer at the local university, at your NGO, at the government level. So there's many projects going on in Singapore, which I think there are many projects, similar projects going on in the Philippines as well. So there's the tree planting project and so on. Okay, last slide, sorry. Okay, so how do we include more youth? Basically, as an educator, what I've started to do is to plan workshops for youth to come into the university in 2025 to have a plankton workshop. You can plan other workshops depending on what you're good at, to give guided talks and walks for schools. And as a university student, actually at that level, you are already able to give back to your community. You can also arrange guided walks and nature events for younger kids and to start your own field trips and learn to be a field guide for those youth. So I just wanted to end off with this saying from Baba Dioum, who's a Senegalese forestry engineer. In the end, we will only conserve what we love. We will only love what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. And the reason why I wanted to share this is because a student of mine actually sent this to me on Teachers' Day. And I think it really opened up my eyes to the fact of how much impact we have as educators on our students. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to really share a little bit about the biodiversity and the natural habitats in Singapore. And thank you very much. I'm so sorry I had to like run through the last part, but
No,
thank
it's
you so
wonderful.
much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Max. We'll get the ball rolling with some of the questions. Some were sent to me, but also I wanted to give some feedback from my own experience. I lived in Singapore for 5 years, and I wanted to let you know that it's such a beautiful garden city that has so many spaces that are green.
It
You just walk
does.
outside and there's a garden, and every HDB has a community center that has perfect opportunities for communicating with nature. So my question is, how unique is a field trip experience in a garden city that has nature in abundance? Because, everywhere they go in Singapore, whether it's a cultivated environment, I don't know, gardens by the bay, everywhere you go in Singapore, you can find something. So, how is the field trip offering another kind of experience in a garden city that has nature everywhere?
Okay, thank you so much for that question, Nikki. So speaking as an ecologist, yes, there is a difference because mainly when we go on these field trips, we're not going to just observe nature, just enjoy nature. So when I bring them, so like, for example, this picture I'm showing you right here, where they're walking over the stones, this is not just a look-see field trip. This is a field trip where they have to evaluate the conservation value, the ecosystem services of that habitat, and to really understand what is this habitat offering people and the animals. When I say conservation value, I'm talking about what native species are being conserved in this habitat. So for Singapore, especially, yes, we are a garden city. Yes, we have many, many manicured gardens. I use the word manicured here because a lot of our native habitats and our nature areas are quite inaccessible to the public. They are basically within the central catchment nature reserve. So those places are the places that I try to bring students out to, and we can't even access the more sensitive areas, but I get to show them some of the streams, the natural streams in Singapore where a lot of our native flora and fauna are found.
Is there still an opportunity in Singapore to actually swim in a stream?
um no.
Or so
Mainly
yeah,
because our streams are so small, you wouldn't be able to fit into it anyway. So our natural streams or our native habitats in Singapore, especially for freshwater, they are very shallow. They're very ankle deep and very fast flowing. Cool waters. They are usually covered over with vegetation, and they're quite sensitive to kind of any kind of habitat disturbance. So we try not to go into the stream at all. And if you do go into the stream, you have to have permits which you get from the government, and to do research. So of course you can do research, but if I was to bring a group of, let's say, 50 students, like, no, I'm not bringing them into the stream. They're just going to look at the stream and then I'm going to tell them what is in the stream.
okay, we invite people to type in the chat box or raise your hand if you want to ask your question verbally yourself. I'll get to the question shortly, but I do have one more question for Dr. Max. So, this is a literal question: an immersive experience where they can immerse themselves. Let's say in the beach, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
here in the photo that you show here. They can't jump in the water, can they? Is this
For the one on
like
the top or the one at the bottom?
one at the top, for
The
example?
one at the top, most likely, we won't really have time for them to jump in. But for the lower level ecology classes, so maybe let me go back. For the lower level ecology classes, yes, they have the opportunity to really immerse themselves because they actually have to do, sorry, they actually have to do sampling. So for example, like this course that I bring students out, I used to bring students to Tioman, they have to get into the stream. because there's no way they can stand outside of the stream. So they have to get into the stream. So they're usually quite wet by the end of the lesson. Even for this, when I bring the kids out to the intertidal walks, they're out on the intertidal area. So everywhere is wet. So they have to dress appropriately. They will be in the water, and they get a hands-on experience. I think that the hands-on experience, especially for the youth, is very important at that age when they're young, because you want to get that excitement, that that motivation. At an older level or a higher level within university, they usually do get into the water or to have that experiential learning when we have actual sampling. For some of my modules, like this social media assignment, they have to go either into the water or near the water to collect the plankton. So they have to be near the water anyway.
Okay, so talking about social media, Carla
Mm-hmm.
Delgado of TDG Kai Farms had this type this. May we ask for your Instagram handle so we can follow you?
Sure.
So we can type it in the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, I'll type it in the chat.
All right. And now, talking about experiential learning, Gina from UP Diliman typed in multisensory engagement is very active during field trips. Okay, so maybe I'll ask you, what feedback stood out to you from your students? Can you share some stories that stand out to you of insights or feedback that, I don't know, maybe surprised you or inspires you that came from your students from doing their field trips?
I think some of the over the years, some of the feedback that they've given me is that they really like it's okay. So the constant feedback I get for all of the courses I teach is, can we have more field trips? Because usually I plan for like maybe one or two, because I don't really have time to fit in more than that, and logistically it takes a lot of time to plan. But their feedback is always that they can't get enough of it. They
Yeah.
love it so much. They want to go out to the field. They want to be immersed in the environment. And I think that they just learn a lot better when they're out in the field. And they are really absorbing whatever you're telling them about the field. Let's say you're trying to get them to do an ecological study, you're trying to get them to look at the ecosystem services. They're really just very keen to learn outdoors and in these particular environments. So the one feedback, or the one common feedback I always get is, can we have more, please? And I'm like, okay, I will try. So that is one. And then the other feedback they get, or I get, is that I think a lot of them come into different modules or different courses not really expecting it to be, they don't know what to expect. So when they first start doing the field trips, they are a surprise at how much fun they are having, but they are still doing work. And I
Okay.
think that's the beauty of it, like to do work and love what you do and to still have fun.
But you did mention resistance. Where is the resistance coming from? And what kind of, I don't know, attitudes bring about this kind of resistance?
So the resistance I'm getting is not from these higher level courses, because the higher level courses is already students who have decided that I want to do this. It's usually from our level 2 or level 1 introduction course that I used to be a teaching assistant in. A lot of the level 1 and level 2 courses are compulsory, or they're an elective for all of the students, whether or not they want to do ecological studies or not. So some might be more inclined towards cell and molecular biology, some might be more inclined towards biomedical biology. So what happens is that when you bring these kinds of I mean, there's all kinds of students out there, right? They are not everyone is the same. So when you bring them out to the field, they have big concerns. So some of them have allergies, some of them have not been out in the field before. So a lot of it actually comes back and ties back to their own childhood and their own understanding of field trips. That's why I say that doing field trips for youth is so important, because you can introduce nature to them at an early age where it's not such a high stakes environment, and they don't feel that stress. I noticed for students who have had experience in the past, that let's say, for example, they've gone to for a beach cleanup, they've gone to plant a tree, they've gone to a park with their family, they have very fond memories of being outside with their parents. So they don't have that kind of resistance. But I notice it's students who don't have that prior experience as youth coming into university. These are the ones that have that initial barrier. And a lot of it has to do with their own childhoods and their own experiences. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that they are not introduced to it early enough.
Okay, so I think that's a. You mentioned that those in the higher years, they already know what they want to do. That's why they're,
Yeah.
they bought into this whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'll read a question from the chat box from Susie Simanjuntak from Chang'an University. She's asking, so how do you deal with students from different background, with different knowledge backgrounds? Because as you mentioned, some students may not be all in environmental
Mm-hmm.
science. Some are from economics, some are from arts or social science students. How do they fit in the content knowledge of your teaching?
So for the broader students, so usually we will go on what I call learning journeys instead. So for those students with a different background, these are the students that I'm actually teaching actually in graduate school in when they are in masters. So if you can see for the graduate students, a lot of them come from really different and really varied backgrounds. And so I slowly introduce them to nature, but I do it in a more sanitized way. So I bring them out to this park I'm showing you here on the right here is a Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park. So it's very nice to walk. It's very clean. It's only just a little bit hot, but you students don't really go into the water. They just kind of experience nature, but not in a full-on way until they get into this other course, which is the field techniques and conservation. So this is the way that we usually do it, where those who are not so comfortable, we'll try to slowly ease them into the different smaller field trips first. And then we get them to do more of the hands-on field trips. But it really depends on their own interests. Because if they are already taking the field techniques, that means there's some interest level there and they are keen to learn more. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two questions that I'll combine about preparatory work.
Mm-hmm.
Sinaida Bono, and I think Bawanan from UP
Mm-hmm.
Baguio asks, do you require waivers for your students, for your undergraduate students joining the fieldwork? And this is echoed also by Prince Soriano from Ateneo Box. I
Yep.
think a theme discussed at last year's conference was discourse between getting kids involved with nature versus cultures that teach kids to stay away from nature, like not touching plants, not going
Yeah.
because it's dangerous. Do you have thoughts on this context in the context of field trips, and how do you cater your learning methods to address that? I think also the question from Julia Cruz of Ateneo is part of this chain, because she asks what orientation is done ahead of field trips to
Yep.
make sure probably that they get the most out of the experience, that they learn the right things, but also that they're kept safe. What are the precautions? So the three things here: this idea that it's dangerous. How do you have a waiver? How do you keep people safe? What kind of orientation do you do? So those are three questions that we sort of lump together.
Okay, sure. Maybe what I'll do is I'll talk to you a little bit about the waiver first. So before any of the students come out to any of these field trips, they are required to sign waivers. They have to. It's part of the NUS organization and what we make sure that they do. Another thing that we get them to tell us is any of the next of kin information, any of their health information. So that means if they're allergic to bee stings, if they're allergic to anything, any of medicine and so on, everything gets written down in a form, and we print these forms and we read through them, and then we bring them to the field in case anything should happen. We also have field assistants with us. Like I always bring a teaching assistant, one or two. There's always a few more lecturers so that we can handle the bigger group. We also give them a field trip briefing in the class before we go to the field trip. So that's very important. The field trip briefing is one of the most important parts because we have to tell them about the safety. We have to tell them about what is required of them, what footwear can they wear, what footwear can they not wear, how should they be dressed, how should they react in the case of an emergency. We also want to keep them safe. So that's why we have a very strong emphasis on this. The safety level within Singapore, I'm sure you understand it's very, very high. So we have very strict regulations about this. So we have to really inform the students before they come out what to expect. Um, and then in the field, we also tell them that to actually stick together and not to separate and to try to stay as close to the group as possible. Um, and then, okay, so then addressing the other issue about how um, nature, you don't want to touch any plants because it's dangerous and so on. So for a lot of these field trips where we bring the students to, they are very highly manicured parks and areas. So there's usually no danger in terms of the plants and the animals. So we're trying to get them to actually overcome this barrier where they are taught, maybe by maybe older family members and so on, that it's dirty, it's dangerous and so on. It's probably a cultural thing to try to get over that whole barrier of it's about nature and how nature is dangerous. Of course, nature can be dangerous in certain aspects, but because we are taking such calculated risk, I would say, and we have really planned out this entire field trip for them. I actually go on before every field trip, I go for a recce trip to make sure that the site is safe. There's no fallen
Yeah.
branches, there's no tree falls. So if there are any
Yeah.
of these, I alert the National Parks Board already, that they already know there's a tree fall in this area. But we also have a safety briefing every time we enter the Central Nature Reserve, just because there could be tree falls, there could be some dangers. So we do alert the students that these things are possible, and we get them to respect the area that they're stepping into, and to not obviously not go off trail, not pluck leaves, like not do all of these things that could bring a harm and a danger to themselves. So all of these behaviors have to be actually inculcated in them before they go for the field trip. And that's why I'm coming back to the trips as a youth. I think the trips for young people is even more important, because then they start to realize at a young age, like, that they can be in nature, it can be safe, but it can also be dangerous. And what risk mitigation can I take so that I'm not putting myself in danger, not putting my friends in danger in the field.
Okay. There
Yeah.
are two questions that I'll lump together again.
Mm-hmm.
From Chloe Ragandap from Ateneo de Manila. She says, is there a specific age that stood out in terms of their enthusiasm for the field trip? But I'll combine that with Julia Cruz again, because her question was student maturity is cited as one of the hurdles for field trips. So she did ask about orientation earlier, but now we're talking about age group, no? Student maturity as well as enthusiasm. So I think the question is, what's the specific age group, and how's the level of maturity of that age group, prepared for properly?
Actually, you'd be surprised, because I actually in the past I was really worried about bringing younger children out, because I felt that the maturity is not there and it's dangerous, and it's very difficult for me to, handle the safety in that aspect. So obviously, if they are younger, the parents are always with them on the field trip as well. So that's very important. So the parents actually help me to manage that. But another thing, I felt that it's like, even at this young age of 5 years old, 6 years old, they already have that cognition level. They know what they're doing, and they also are aware of the environment, and they can look at animals, and they are aware that they are not supposed to touch some animals. But so there's that awareness is already there, I think. So it just depends on how we train them and how we teach them within the field context. And also their parents being there and the parents explaining to them certain things is also very important. So the group that I brought, the 8 to 9 year olds, were very, very excited, and they were very obedient. They really listened to whatever I had to tell them, and their parents also were there to kind of back me up in a way, because you need that. You need other adults to help, especially for field trips when there's a lot of younger people. You need to have that parental guidance. Otherwise, it's quite difficult. I did bring a group of primary school students, so about 7 to 8 years old, for a beach cleanup. And there weren't parents around, but there were teachers and there were guardians. So that was also all right, because once you tell them about the safety, they are able to understand, and they are also a bit more cautious, because they understand that there are some risks involved. But all of this needs to be properly communicated to them before you even start the field trip. That's why the pre-field trip briefing is so important, and the understanding of why you are there. you see. So for example, if it's a beach cleanup, like they know that they are there to pick up the trash, to clean the beach, or to like you have I think one thing about students, or one thing about youth and children in general, is that once you give them a task, they are very set upon this task, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful. So you give them this task, you give them the equipment, and they will really be very intent on executing this task. And I think that we don't give children and youth enough credit, because the cognition level is there. We just need to bring the best out in them. And I feel
Okay.
that it is not difficult to do.
Probably just last two more
Yeah.
questions. Did you ever receive any critical insights from students, maybe even at the older age or even at the younger age, where they question some of the practices? Because right now we can see that they will be in awe, they will be very appreciative. Singapore is very beautiful and efficient and
Mm-hmm.
all that. So I'm very curious if there has been a view that surprised you.
Um, I would say not a view that surprised me, but I think that there are, even as you say that, okay, Singapore is very manicured, it's there's a garden, but there's always this ongoing struggle between keeping nature areas natural, because one garden is not equal to another garden, right? Like a natural forest is not the same as having a botanical garden.
Yeah.
So this constant battle between keeping a nature forest what it is, and basically tearing it down to make a garden, this is the kind of the debate that is in a lot of in a lot of the classes.
Yeah.
And the students, of course, will ask me like, oh, why can't we just have a bit more nature areas in this part? Like, why can't we leave this particular forested area um, untouched, and why must it be removed for a park? But then I go in to give them a more well-rounded understanding that, as you all know, how small Singapore is. The fact that we have this central catchment is already a miracle in itself, that it was kept, right?
Yeah.
We have so many demands for our space. We have
Yeah.
housing, roads, we have schools, we have hospitals. So we have so many things in such a small area. So I usually will explain to the students that we want to pick our battles. We always pick which areas we want to fight for. We
Yeah.
fight for areas have that native species, they have high biodiversity. If it makes no sense, honestly, when I tell students, it makes no sense to fight for abandoned scrubland. It makes more sense to fight for a secondary forest that's been there for a long time, primary forest, rather than to um,
Yes.
get yourself worked up over an area that was already slated for development. So a
Yeah.
lot of these things, this comes with maturity, I think, and actually I welcome these debates. I love it, because for me it means that the students are thinking very deeply about their own land use in Singapore.
Yes.
And believe me, once they like leave university and they start to look for their own housing in Singapore, this debate completely changes. So it's yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
One last question.
Yeah, sure.
How about field trips of a comparative lens? Do you cross over to Indonesia or Malaysia to see how? Because Singapore is singular,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the world. Do you consider taking people out for field trips elsewhere to
N-
get them?
so I used to do that in the past under a broader module called field studies. That this study right here, this one, LSM 4263. So we actually bring them out to Tioman, to a Malaysian island, Tioman. So this field study, we bring them out to the field, because the issue with bringing them overseas during the term time is that you have to factor in traveling, which is not possible usually during the term. So this particular study actually runs in the summertime. This particular course runs in the summertime, so you have a bit more time. So they actually do a lot of field trips in Singapore leading up to their 1 week intensive field trip in Tioman. They are given a project which they will do for 5 days. So this particular group that I brought in 2012, they were doing a plankton project in the streams. This project was not easy at all. They had to hike. Their field trip was super exhausting. So they wake up early in the morning, they hike over a mount, like a small little hill, They go up, they sample the water bodies all along the trail. Then they go back to the rest home. They eat something, and then I tell them, don't rest. We need to go out again because we need to recce for the night field trip. So that trip is usually quite tiring, and I have to already train them or prepare them for this particular 1 week intensive field trip in Malaysia.
Okay, I'm afraid that's all the time we have, but thank you very much for answering all the questions to our audience. Thank you also for fielding a lot of questions. At this point, we'd like to express formally our gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Maxine Mo. We would like to present this certificate of appreciation, which we are currently sharing on screen. Dr. Mo, we will send you this directly, the certificate of appreciation
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
keynote lecture and the Q&A. Thank you, everybody. Let's give Dr. Mo a virtual round of applause through the icons you can put. Thank you once again, Dr. Max. That was really an engaging forum. Thank you for all the questions. And now we will proceed to the second keynote. This topic now is from the cities and environment angle of Dr. Max. We will now move to cities and culture. The second keynote lecture will discuss how cities can keep their distinct cultural identities in the face of rapid expansion and change through their cultural landmarks, their community driven heritage initiatives, and through policy frameworks. The speech will be delivered by landscape architect Dr. Rohaya Che Ahmad. But first, let me introduce her with her bio note. Dr. Rohaya Che Ahmad is a senior lecturer at the Malaysia-Japan International Institute of Technology, University Technology Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur. Her commitment to education, research, and the practical application of her research focuses on historic urban environment studies, landscape architecture, and heritage conservation. She supervises PhD, MPhil candidates and significantly contributes to the Master of Science or Sustainable Urban Design program. Dr. Rohaya's work integrates cultural heritage preservation with sustainable urban development, aiming to balance historical integrity with modernity. She is a sought after speaker and has been invited to share her insights on heritage conservation and urban sustainability at various academic and professional and international forums. And today, we're very lucky because she's going to be addressing us. To deliver a keynote lecture entitled Urban Harmony, Merging Cultural Heritage with Modern City Life. Let us all please give a virtual round of applause for landscape architect Dr. Rohaya Che Ahmad. You have the floor, ma'am, and I'll signal you when you have 2 minutes left. You have a 20-minute presentation. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Dr. Nikki. So I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nikki. Good morning to all the participants. Thank you to 2024 AUN-EEC Conference on Ecological Education and Culture Reviving the Cities. And thank you also to Dr. Emmanuel and committee members at the Ateneo de Manila University for inviting me. So today I would like to present on the title of Urban Harmony, Merging Cultural Heritage with Modern City Life. So these presentations will explore how cities can achieve harmony by preserving cultural heritage while embracing modernity, ensuring that the rich history of urban spaces is not lost in the pursuit of the progress development. Okay, in the rapidly evolving urban landscape of today, cities face the challenge of preserving their cultural heritage while meeting the demands of the modern life. Cultural heritage is actually include the intangible and tangible elements, including historic buildings, monuments, traditions, language, and practices. So cultural heritage, the importance of cultural heritage is actually cultural heritage provide a sense of continuity, identity, and belonging, connecting current and future generations to their roots. It plays a crucial role in shaping the characters of the cities and communities. So as the cities grows, we heard that Father Roberto also talked about this. There is an increasing need to modern infrastructure, housing and services, which can often lead to the marginalizations or loss of historic cities and culture practice. So these tensions between the developments and preservation can lead to cultural and erasure if it's not managed carefully. Modern buildings and urban sprawl sometimes overshadow or displace the historical site. Cultural heritage as urban identity is actually defining the global city image. It serves as a soul of the cities, giving a unique character, differentiate it from other urban areas in worldwide. So as we can see here, when we look at this, we know it is Rome, and then when we look at this, we know that this physical elements actually resemblance of the Paris. But then, sadly, this is current trend now that sometimes we cannot associate with any part of the world that have their authentic identity. So the value of cultural heritage in the cities. Cultural heritage is actually fostering community pride. The heritage sites actually strengthen the community bond by preserving the collective memory and shared experience. The background's image is actually the River of Malacca in Malacca UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And then heritage sites also strengthen the community bonds by preserving the collective memories and shared experiences. And then this is that we can see now in shop houses and courtyard heritage in Malacca, that when they do retrofitting of the historic urban building, buildings. And this one is also in the Malacca, then they transfer into the art galleries and also the housing. And this one is in Kuching, Sarawak, that we still can see there is an cultural activities in the historic cities of the Kuching in Sarawak. And also, cultural heritage is actually fostering the cultural landmark that often become focal point for local celebrations, traditions, and tourism, contributing to the economic and social vitality that you can see from the images that I shared. This is in Harmony Streets in Malacca, Jalan Tokong, that in one street, they have a lot of interfaith heritage buildings. And the urbanizations exactly give pressures and heritage lots, because the rapid urbanizations often prioritize infrastructure developments over heritage preservations, that it will leading to the destructions of historic cities. That is not only happen in Malaysia, it actually happens worldwide. And modern architecture and urban sprawl can overshadow and encroach upon the culturally significant area of the historic area. This is that we can see in Kuala Lumpur currently, disruptions of the urban patterns, where this is the historical building Bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad, and then be covered by the MRT rail. And this one is in Malacca, where the the historic Malay town, being enclosed by the new developments, which is, you can see that is the disruptions in the urban pattern. And we have a lot of actually challenges, especially in Malaysia now, currently in Kampung Baru also. Kampung Baru, one is of the oldest Malay historic townscape. They also cut the pressure of the developments, especially because Kampung Baru is actually in the center of Kuala Lumpur, capital cities of Malaysia. And then I also bring you that it's not only in Malaysia, as I saw, it's also in worldwide, that when you demolish the old buildings and then replace it with a new building with the new functions, which is sometimes you can't get the culturally attachment with the people that, if you can see, this is the marketplace where people will easily mingle around, and suddenly you put it in aircon and then people will be inside the building. This is no attachment from inside to outside and outside to inside. And then Liverpool also loss of the UNESCO World Heritage Site because of the new developments on the Museum of Liverpool, then Liverpool, and how the new development, the new architecture is actually interrupt the natural settings of the these UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So the challenges that we have been talking all over again in the worldwide platforms is actually balancing developments and conservations. We kind of like difficult to find a balance between accommodating the urban growth and also preserving the integrities of the culture site. And then at the same time, when you retrofit or do the regenerations of the historic areas, and then gentrifications will lead to the displacements of the local communities and the commercializations of the culture heritage. So this is also happens in Malacca, where the new developments that also cause some kind of like uneasiness to the local community. And it's not only happens in Malaysia, it's also happens in Beijing when they do the redevelopment projects of the Hutong city, when they displace and evict a few communities and then replace it with the new developments. And I put here a case studies of the Japan. Why? Because Japan even is being densely populated. Japan has struggled also like us to preserve and maintain its vast and valuable heritage asset against developments. So, but then these have been done through a comprehensive package of policy measures. They also have strong governance structure, educations and capacity buildings, technology solutions also to facilitate the preservations and conservations of the heritage area, which Japan offers valuable lessons for countries in the Asia Pacific region. So this is like a Kyoto approach to the heritage preservation. Kyoto has maintained its cultural and historical identity while embracing the modernity. The city employs strict zoning laws and conservation regulations to protect its historic districts and also temples. So as we can see here that Japan also link heritage conservations to tourism strategies, both domestic and also international, to revitalize the local economy, especially to the local communities. And then this Japan, you can see with the diagram, it shows that Japan have holistic approach, emphasize on the combinations of the tangible and intangible heritage. So the other one is on the case studies of the Istanbul in Turkey, how they navigate the heritage challenge. The one that I showed here is actually Sulukule. Sulukule is one of the Istanbul districts of Fatih. It is in urban renewal zone. During the urban regeneration project, the government paid to the local community to evict from these particular areas, and then built the new townhouse, which is that the price of this townhouse reported that 10 times higher than the one that they paid to the local community. Okay. And then this is the successful one, the successful restorations of historical Balad districts through community-led initiative. And how to strategize for harmonizing heritage and modernity. One of it that I think is using the adaptive reuse. So repurposing historic building for new users while preserving their original structure and aesthetic. As I show you just now that in Malacca, when they retrofit the shop houses, the old shop houses in Malacca, and make it become a cafe and also housings and then art gallery, than to make people live inside that particular buildings. And then here also that we can see that the transformations of old warehouses in London Docklands into residential and commercial spaces. By doing this, is actually you bring people back to the cities rather than evict them from the cities. Okay, so adaptive reuse is actually support sustainability by reducing the needs for new constructions and maintaining for culture fabrics, the cities. So then UNESCO also, because this is the problems in urban regenerations have been talked a lot, during the early times, even in UNESCO, then they come out with a guidance and toolkit for the impact assessments. And then most of the cities in the world, when they do want to do regeneration in historic cities, they will have the heritage impact assessment. So to see how far that the new developments will erode or erase the authenticity or the originality of the city. So the policy should actually encourage developers to consider the culture, especially cultural significance of the site of their project. And then we can see here that for the Warsaw Reconstructions, Architecture, Heritage, and National Identity, we see that the commitment of community engagements, how they persuade themselves to restore the one that is already bombed, and then the reconstructions rates in exactly the same, that similar before it was bombed. So then the community-led initiative also can generate strong support for preservation cultural landmarks and tradition. And as you can see here is actually, as I told earlier, that Japan have that integrations of heritage in urban planning policy. So I think that should be done to all of the countries, but especially Malaysia, because I'm talking about my own country, which we are not looking in that now. I mean, we don't have like a really comprehensive integrations heritage in urban planning. And we should also, because everybody is talking about SDGs and so on, so we should promote sustainable development. So development projects should align with sustainable practice that respect and preserve cultural heritage. Again and again, if you see that during these presentations, I keep talking about cultural heritage, because culture heritage is very important. It's about people, it's about community, because cities without people is not a cities. Okay, and enhancing and collaboration between government, developers, and local community is essential for successful heritage preservations. Multi-stakeholder partnerships can lead to more comprehensive and effective conservation strategies, which is most of the countries, we are still working in the silos, so then we can't see the integrations of planning when we do the regenerations projects for the historic area. So because now we are towards the digital documentations and preservations, I believe that, even the UNESCO also, promotes that using the digital tool, digital archive, that can be a valuable resources for restorations and educational purposes. And then they also do the, as an example, the visual reconstructions of ancient Rome's and also Pompeii, that allowing that visitors to explore the cities, and it was that 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And smart technology on IoT devices that can monitor the conditions of the heritage sites in the real times, and then the technology that can manage visitors flow in a heritage site to reducing wear and tear technologies. So as an conclusions, the keywords is actually the balance. So successful urban plannings actually requires a harmonious blend of cultural heritage, preservations, and modern developments. And strategies for success, this is my recommendations from this. This is actually, we use adaptive reuse. We got to have strong policy framework, and active community engagements are the vitals. And then we also need to learn from others. I just put a few examples. Actually, they have a lot more examples that we can look on for the opportunities in merging the heritage with the modern team. So for the final thoughts, urban harmony is not merely about preserving the past. It's about creating a living, evolving cities that respect their histories while embracing for the future. So I encourage that stakeholders, including urban planners, urban designers, policy makers, and community, to collaborate in fostering city for that honor both their heritage and potential for innovations. That's all from me, Dr. Nikki. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I haven't even been able to tell you 2 minutes left. You already did the job of ending your presentation ahead of time. Thank you very, very much. So I have a few questions that were sent in to me that I could read. But before I go to the questions, I wanted to ask you, you showed a slide where there were protesters. I think it was a Portuguese community that was trying to protect probably Peranakan or architecture. What happened to them? Did they succeed in their protest?
Actually, because of this one, it's happens when they are doing the reclamations. That reclamations is not happens into their village, but near the village because they are, let's see, when you are do the reclamations, then
Yeah.
actually reduce because they are most of that are fishermen, so they are
Yes.
every day this project is actually like a few years during the COVID, and also because Malaysia, the political that we changed the governments a few times, right? So this is actually on hold. But what happens now for this Portuguese, they are still fighting for that. But the good stories, this happened in Penang, but they win in the court for that.
Okay.
Penang they win, but for this one, they are not go for the court. I think it's this one. They just do this kind of protest to tell governments that please do care about us. But they are still keep fighting for that.
Okay. No, this is very interesting to me because Manila itself also has a huge reclamation project, and I grew up looking out into the sea, and I don't see that anymore because now when you revisit, the Sofitel area in Manila, when you look out, before the sea was near, and now it's just gotten farther and farther away because of reclamation. It's both an environmental as well as a heritage issue. And we can see that those themes are intertwined. Of course, in Singapore, we know that they no longer have fisher folk. They just really stamped that out in the 60s and the 70s. The whole Bay Area was developed and it was a strategic plan, and we lost, many people lost their jobs. So these are the fisher folk of Melaka, is this okay? So now go back to the questions. Sorry, I just had to ask that. Okay, so it's not a question, but somebody sent an insight. It is good to know that there is a virtual heritage experience and that it is being promoted. Um, I do not think it is a passive submission to the changing times, but it is culture dialoguing with the signs of the times. Tell us more about what you think virtual heritage experiences is doing. Is it reinforcing cultural heritage, or does it is it enabling things that are replacing um, the sites themselves?
Actually, on the digitalizations of the some of the UNESCO World Heritage sites actually happened during the COVID. When during the COVID, everything is like closed. Even the museums and so on. So I believe that we're looking on the good ones. Yeah, I believe that digitalizations is actually like you visualize what the place looked like, so like 2,000 years ago. But it's actually especially for the young generations, because young generations is about fact. Wherever that you read, it must be show it, the real one. So then also because some of the people like it's not really afford to go to all the heritage place in the world. So this is also one of the things that make the community, make the people close and appreciate the 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 heritage, the historic heritage. I think from that we can at least, because I believe nowadays also have I'm not sure whether we still have history syllabus in secondary or primary school. If we also have, also it's not only detail, it's not only thorough about the cities and so on, unless you join the universities. When you take histories, then you and so on. So you studies about the historic cities, you studies about the museums and so on. But yet for the community, they don't. So those things, I believe, because of the evolutions of the time,
Yeah.
digital is very important.
Okay, so you mentioned in your talk, and this is a question I'm reading from someone about Japan. So the question is, do you have examples of best practices from the ASEAN region or any example in Malaysia where you could see that there was a balancing of both the need for development and cultural preservation?
Okay, the Japan, I see a lot because I went for twice for the heritage workshop with ACC UNARA and also UNESCO and ICOM and in Tsukuba universities. And then I find out that if look at Japan itself, they have 25 heritage sites, UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and they have 20 of it is actually related to the culture. And most of the cities in that UNESCO, they really protect. So you can see, even when you visit that place, you can still that the old and the new connected. And then I think that, but I never been vegan. You know that vegan in Manila, right?
Yeah, in the Philippines, in the north, yes, in Ilocos region. Vegan, yeah.
And also one of the best practice. I just read because I never been in vegan. That
Yes.
also UNESCO did take vegan as one of also the best example. In Indonesia also, I went a few places like Malioboro in Yogyakarta.
Yes, yes.
Semarang also, we have a lot. It just like we have to kind of like stop our maybe politicians to interrupt into their developments, and also we also kind of like need to have the community that really love the place to protect and to preserve it.
Yeah. I think it's in those places where culture um, retains its vibrance and life. For example, places where the crafts, I mean, in Mario de Boro in Jakarta, people really have make batik.
Yeah.
And they really make it by hand, and you can see it, and you can tell that the whole governing aesthetic of the world of batik is alive and well, that people still do things. Yeah.
The vibe, right? You can feel that you are in that kind of
Yes.
scene that
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah, and I think also in vegan, you mentioned vegan, people still make the traditional blankets that they use, so people, a city is not just the built environment, but it's also how the people live in it, and want to preserve aspects of that culture. A student, sorry, not sure if this is a student, whoever wrote this said, can you relate cultural preservation to environmental protection? So I think that she's looking at the intersections between wanting to preserve culture and wanting to protect the environment in the ASEAN context.
Okay, we are talking about culture and environments. Is actually we go back to the histories, like when they built the place, they are really built the place according to the resources that they have during that time. And they, if you can compare, it's actually the new buildings and the old buildings. The old building is very humanized. well, the new buildings, you even cannot have an eye contact people to people because it's like kind of like out of the scale, right? So, um, conserving the culture, especially in the cities, right? So you are preserving the environments also. While because that particular buildings that have been there like 1,000 years, 100 years, and then if you study the building itself is actually they connect it with the environmental. They connect it with the surrounding environment. I did read one of the paper, but I can't remember. There is a new research that done on the forum in Rome. That the that's the then
Yeah.
that buildings is actually can heal by herself when they do the scientific studies, they find out that the buildings can heal by themselves. It's magic, right? So means that first, during you know uh, during the history, they with the also with the local materials, like
Yeah.
the natural materials, and then that natural materials actually already adapt into the environment. So, compared to the new, like when you use glass, it reflects difference to the climate. But the heritage buildings, it reflects
Yeah.
great well with the natural surroundings. That's what I can answer.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Heritage buildings are built with the wisdom of people who are very attuned to their environment. That is why a lot of vernacular architecture has materials that allow light to come through so that you get natural lighting. You get the pre air conditioning era's movement of the wind through the housing for natural ventilation. There's a lot of wisdom in the building of the ideas of building in the past that disappear when we allow this heritage to disappear too. But in terms again of connecting culture and environmental protection, Zenaida Bawanan from the UP Baguio, that's the University of the Philippines Baguio, shares that Baguio City has been declared by UNESCO as a creative city of crafts and folk art. But many people who've been going up to Baguio every year they will say, "Oh my God, there's too many buildings now. There's too much traffic now. There's too much pollution now." I don't know. And there's another comment here. Gina from UP Diliman, University of the Philippines, Diliman. She says, "Thank you for reimagining the future where intersectionalities and relationalities of all Allah's gifts are appreciated." Yeah, so I don't know if Miss
That's
Sinaida. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
for the Baguio. That's not also happens to Baguio. It's happened also for the in Malacca and also Penang. So
Yeah.
both of that cities is actually UNESCO World Heritage Site because
Yeah.
of overcrowded tourists especially. So I think
Yeah.
we must consider that we have to have control on the tourists. If not, then it will lose also. It will lose its culturally authentic because it's too massive people.
Yeah, I can imagine a place in the Philippines in the north. There's a place called Batanes. The natural control is it's hard to get to, and the flights are few. So naturally, even if many people want to go there, there's a limit to the number of people who can because there's just not enough flights, and it gets to preserve its natural beauty and its cultural heritage. But a speaker from last year's conference developed an ecotouristic site preserving the geo features of what's this called, the Masungi Geo Reserve, and they said they really controlled the numbers to make sure that the impact on the environment they want to preserve, will be safeguarded, so that it's not runaway tourism. um, oh, somebody asked a question. Based on your experience, how can we best make the youth appreciate and take an active role in preservation of cultural heritage?
I think that, Um, yeah, because youth is quite difficult. It's not quite difficult, but then to make them like be in the uh, um, what preserving the heritage is
Yeah, take on an active role, because it tends to be that people who are nostalgic about places places a an active role. So it's old people who tend to like. And so how can the youth take a more active role?
I think in UNESCO also, in e-commerce also, e-commerce Malaysia or e-commerce international, we have emerging professionals, emerging professionals. So this emerging professional is actually the professionals or anybody that heritage that can join us. So those is actually below than 35 years old. So means that
Yeah.
from that we are trying to promote, engage, especially with the university students and also school children. So we will do a lot of activities that relates to heritage, appreciate the heritage to the school students and also university students. That is how we attach the students, the youth to the heritage, especially in Malaysia.
I was in a train in London just recently on a trip, and I heard a young man. He was saying to his parents, the parents said, "So what will you do now after graduating?" And the young man said, "I just need to get my driver's license so I could apply to be a tour bus driver, because there's so many jobs into heritage tourism and we can go through all the castles." And so he was so excited about the prospects in that industry, because he says that heritage conservation is such a big thing now, and there are so many jobs available. So that is a possibility that we can imagine, if we get there. There now on policy. Sorry, this is a different question. Could you speak more on the role of peace and strong institutions? Peace institutions and strong institutions in heritage preservation. We know from the examples of Ukraine and Palestine that conflict has a negative effect on culture and environment. Um, yeah, so I
Uh,
think, yeah, that's the role of strong institutions.
the role of strong institutions. Okay, I cannot talk that on
Yeah, yeah,
like Malaysia, because Malaysia we don't really have that urban regenerations policy. We only look on the physical conservations like buildings and so on, not about the cities as a whole, settings as a whole. But looking on that, if we would see that in Japan, that their conservations and preservations is actually under education ministries. So I
okay,
believe that we have to start from educate the people and educate the people, and then from that when they come out, when they after the schools, then they can become an eye for the people, eye for the community. I remember that when I was in Shirakawa-go, one of the UNESCO historical traditional village in Japan, they said that they take 20 years 20 years to do the restoration conservations of that particular historical village. From that place become a lot of cars, and then they remove all the car, and then that makes that place so peaceful and so on. It takes 20 years, and it starts from the kids, right? They embed the heritage studies, appreciate the heritage, appreciate the histories from the schools. So then the students come back to the from to home, and then they will talk about that with their parents, and then from that it's kind of like give a big impact. But conserving and preserving heritage is not about 1 day, 2 day, 3 days. It will take like
yes,
longer.
yeah. I'm filled with hope. I've
Huh?
seen pictures of how Manila was completely flattened after World War II. We've lost so much, and yet Intramuros now looks like a proper heritage site that has been restored through the decades, it is possible to rise from conflict and recover damaged heritage and heal our cities. Unfortunately, we only have until 10:50. Thank you very much. This is landscape architect Dr. Rahaya for sharing with us your keynote and for the Q&A session. So we will show you on screen now to express our gratitude to our speaker. This is our formal certificate of appreciation that we will send to you directly, and the citation is shown on screen. And with that, let us give a big round of applause, virtual clap. Thank you again, Dr. Rohaya.
Thank you,
And
Dr.
our next part of our program is I'll turn over the floor to Mr. Daniel Ratilla from the AUN-EEC Secretariat to discuss to us the mechanics of membership to the AUN-EEC. Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carcy Cruz, and to everyone, once again, welcome to the conference with the theme Rewilding the City. So today I want to talk very quickly about membership process if you are interested in joining the network. And in the next slide, you will see that the network currently consists of 41 members. 33 of which are classified as regular members, who are all either university-based administrative offices or academic departments, as well as 8 associate members, who are all university-based student organizations or professional groups, private businesses, non-governmental organizations, and local government units. And you'll notice that all of these member institutions actually span the different member countries of the ASEAN region. So now who can apply to be a member? You'll see in the next slide that there are 3 different membership types under the network. Whether you are within or outside of the university context, an organization is very much welcome to apply to be a member. However, do note that membership is actually institutional and not on an individual basis. So these institutions must also be located or be based in any or several of the 10 currently recognized ASEAN member states. In the next slide, we will see the mechanics for retention and the membership fee. So there's actually no membership fee to join the network. And membership retention requires annual attendance of at least 1 representative from your institution to 1 AUN-EEC hosted event, as well as co-hosting or co-sponsoring 1 event with the AUN-EEC Secretariat or with another AUN-EEC member every 3 years. So now that we know where our current members are and who can apply and what the mechanics are for retention, let's discuss how your organization can apply. Interested institutions may first accomplish the membership application form, which is accessible at the short link bit.ly/AUNEEC_app form. Once this is accomplished, we can proceed to step 2, which is to submit the form via the short link bit.ly/AUNEEC_appform_submission. And don't worry, we will be sharing all of these links in the chat later. The application period for this current intake ends next January 15, 2025. So there's still a lot of time if you wish to apply for this current intake cycle. Once this has been submitted, we will proceed to the last step, which is all applications undergoing review by the steering committee of the network. So let's recap the steps. First, we need to access the membership application form at bit.ly/AUNEEC_app form. Submit the form at the submission link by the 15th of January 2025, and which will then be reviewed by the steering committee. Of course, we are always looking to welcome new institutions into our growing network. So if you would like to know more about the network, please visit our website at auneec.ateneo.edu for more details, or you can scan the QR code to access the webpage. We will also be sending these links in the chat. And with that, I hope that I have enticed you enough to join our network and to start applying or to start convincing your institutional leaders to join us. So with that, I now hand the floor back over to Dr. Nikki Carci Cruz.
Thank you very much, Daniel. The steering committee of AUN-EEC, which I'm happy to be part of also, will convene to review the applications that we will receive this year. So in our next event, we look forward to having more members on board. Now, the earlier part were two keynotes. When we had an open forum immediately after each presentation, we moved to the next part. This will be the panel discussion. Every year, we bring practitioners from different fields together to share best practices from their respective contexts. For our Rewilding the City conference this year, our panel discussion will feature best practices in mainstreaming sustainability in Southeast Asia. We will hear about zero hunger, smart cities, urban housing, and youth engagement in this year's panel discussion. We have four speakers. Each of them will share their presentation. And after all the four presentations, we will open the floor for questions. So please hold on to your questions or type them immediately in the chat box as they come to you, and we will ask them in one go in in a combined Q&A. For our speakers, you will have a total of 8 minutes. I will alert you at the 6 minute mark, so you could wrap up in the last 2 minutes. Without further ado, I will now introduce to you the first panelist. First up is a presentation on Quezon City in the Philippines. Let me introduce our speaker, a social entrepreneur by heart. Emmanuel U. Nonong F. Velasco II has been a champion of sustainable development and the value of transformative agriculture and food systems transformation for the past decade. With degrees in management engineering and family ministry from Ateneo de Manila University, Velasco developed expertise in social enterprise. This knowledge was instrumental in founding Organic Options Incorporated, his agriculture based venture. He played a key role in creating the Farm Business School program, which aimed to capacitate farmers to have a market driven mindset. He then transitioned to public service as the Sustainable Development Projects Officer and concurrently the co-chairperson of the Quezon City Local Government's Food Security Task Force, leading the development of the award-winning Grow QC Kasama Ka sa Pag-unlad ng Pagkain, Kabuhayan at Kalusugan, which roughly translated in English is Grow Quezon City, you are a part of developing food, livelihood, and health. Innovative food security program of the city, which has garnered several awards in just 4 years since its inception. So, to share his presentation, let us all give a warm welcome to Mr. Emmanuel Velasco II for his talk on Grow QC Participatory Development Towards Food, Livelihood, and Health. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carci Cruz, for that introduction and permission to have access to share my slides. Can everybody see the slides?
Yes,
Can I
sir,
get a
we can
thumbs
see
up
it.
or confirmation? Okay, thank you. Good morning to the organizers of the 2024 ASEAN University Network Ecological Education and Culture Conference, to my fellow presenters, to the students and participants of this conference entitled Rebuilding a City, a pleasant morning to all. My slide is not moving. Hold on. There you go. It is an honor to be with you today, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share with you one of Quezon City's sustainability programs, the Grow QC Food Security Initiative, that fully embraces mainstream sustainability in its approach to good governance and service. In behalf of our international, or for the benefit of our international audience, allow me to give a quick background of our city. Quezon City, or QC, with a resident population exceeding 3 million and a total area of 161 square kilometers, is considered the largest city in Metro Manila, the capital of the Philippines. It is politically divided into 6 congressional districts and 142 barangays. Barangays being the smallest administrative unit in our governance. In early 2020, to address the food insecurity brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Quezon City Food Security Task Force was created through Executive Order 32. Please take note that Quezon City is part of a highly urbanized city, and thus we don't have an agriculture office. Thus, the need to create this task force. The task force immediately created and put into action the Grow QC Kasama Ka sa Pag-unlad sa Pagkain, Kabuhayan at Kalusugan Food Security Initiative. Again, roughly translated in English, Grow QC, you are a part of the solution for food, livelihood, and health. Quezon City's Grow QC Food Security Initiative, as the tagline suggests, was created with the following sustainability development goals in mind: to address hunger, SDG 2, provide livelihood, SDG 8, and promote better health and well-being, SDG 3. And with secondary goals, to create a sustainable and resilient city, SDG 11, pursue climate action, SDG 13, and create partnerships to achieve these goals, SDG 17. The Quezon City Food Security Task Force put together a food security framework that has 2 main pillars of approach. The first of which is to enhance urban food production and inputs production. And the second being improving food systems or food systems transformation. Within this framework are 8 specific action steps that respond to the emerging trends to improve food systems and to achieve sustainability. To have a better appreciation of our Grow QC initiative, please watch this video.
Wala kaming inaasahan na kinsina, katapusan na sahod. Ikaw lang yung nagpupunta sa pamilya.
Yung 3,000 na yun, iniisip namin paano pagkakasyahin. Na-encourage ako sa kanila, lalo na sa mga nanay na lockdown na nga sila, tapos pinagpipursige sila magtanim. Yung mga gulay na na-harvest namin, binibenta namin.
A hungry man is an angry man.
Sa pag-ani ng mga itinanim ay madala natin ito sa mga community kindness stations sa mga parokya.
Ang Grow QCU kasi, hindi lang siya urban farming. Kailangan tingnan din natin yung pagdaloy ng pagkain or food systems or food flow. Ito pong dalawang to ang susi para maatim natin ang kawalan ng gutom. SDG 2.
Oops. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Ang Grow QCU kasi, hindi lang siya urban farming. Kailangan tingnan din natin yung pagdaloy ng pagkain or food systems or food flow. Ito pong dalawang to ang susi para maatim natin ang kawalan ng gutom. SDG 2, Zero Hunger.
Sabi nga po namin, halaman na ng pagmamahalan ito. Dito po nabuo ang napakagandang samahan.
We need to empower them. We need to teach them how to fish. To give them hope. Sa panahon ngayon, ang pinaka-importante ay bigyan natin sila ng pag-asa.
We thought of empowering our residents. The beauty of urban agriculture is that it has brought communities closer together.
Let's go, QC!
So from 40 urban farms at the onset in 2020, we now have over 1,000 farms and gardens, covering a total area of 58.4 hectares, ranging from small backyard gardens to areas as large as 7 hectares. These farms provide livelihoods to more than 25,000 residents, including senior citizens, people with disabilities, and most of our urban farmers are predominantly women. All our public schools have their own spaces for urban farms, teaching students the value of sustainable agriculture. Private villages in the city have established farms that allow their marginalized neighbors to grow food. Now both communities benefit from fresh produce. These farms not only supplied fresh produce, but also created opportunities for all residents, regardless of background or ability, to contribute to their own food security and well-being of the entire community. Also, through GrowQC Kadiwa partnership that seeks to improve how food is brought into our city, we have made accessible and available over 2.2 million kilograms of fruits and vegetables, roughly worth around 112 million pesos, to those who are needy within our city. Beginning 2024, the city has put more effort into food systems improvement and transformation. We are now aggressively promoting circular economy efforts for both biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. Surplus food is now being rescued. It is combined with urban garden produce, converted into hot meals, and fed to the most vulnerable sectors in the city. The city has also invested in rapid composters and have been capacitating communities on how to make compost, which is then brought to the gardens so that more food can be grown. Indeed, healthy soil leads to healthy harvests. Not only are we addressing environmental issues, we are also providing food and nutrition to our citizens. For the past 3 years, GrowQC and Quezon City in general have garnered a lot of awards and recognitions from local, national, and international organizations. In 2021, GrowQC won the Galing Po Awards, a local and prestigious award here in the Philippines. In 2022, the Department of Health awarded our program for the Healthy Pilipinas Award. And in the same year, GrowQC was a finalist at the C40's Bloomberg Philanthropies Awards. In 2023, the Department of Interior and Local Government awarded Quezon City the Hapag Kalinga Award in support for the Halina't Magtanim ng Prutas at Gulay or Hapag Barangay Project. Also in 2023, our beloved Mayor, Mayor Joy Belmonte, was awarded the Champion of the Earth by the United Nations Environment Protection. She is the only government official bestowed this recognition. And this year in 2024, with our food rescue advocacy, our local barangays
Final minute,
QC
sir.
food basket program
One last
won
minute.
the DSWD Galing Po Walang Gutom Awards. All of Grow QC's success would not have been possible without multi-sectoral partnerships, community involvement and volunteerism. Indeed, it is through cooperation and collaboration we are able to make dreams come true. As I end, I hope that in the near future, we can partner with all of you in the pursuit of security and sustainability. Quezon City has a local university called QC University, and it has also been ranked in the 1,500 in terms of sustainability ranking. So we would like to meet other universities as we're doing a lot of research in aid of policy and programs. Thank you very much. For more information about Grow QC, here's the QR code.
Thank you very much, Mr. Velasco, for your presentation. You know, that is an inspiring, good news kind of presentation. A few years ago, our topic was to move with the learnings that we got from the pandemic. And, you know, during the pandemic, when food security was a huge issue, people were really going hungry. Quezon City was a place where the community pantries were pioneered, and people were really lining up and getting food and growing food also. So we see that we didn't leave behind the learnings from the pandemic. Some of them are being continued, the choreographies, nurturing choreographies that we learned at that time. If you have questions, please type it in the chat box. We'll address that later. Mr. Velasco will join us for a Q&A at the end of all the panel presentations. So now I'll move on to the next
Dr.
presentation.
Carcy Cruz, if I can just quickly add, you did mention about the community pantries. Remember that we had limited movement. So those who were donating food, where did they actually get these food? It's difficult to get them from the provinces. That's the reality. And that's why behind that community pantry program, behind that backbone was actually the urban gardens, because
Yes.
citizens actually bought from the urban gardens and donated it to the other vulnerable communities.
And
Thank you
it's
very much.
good that continues. Right? Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll move to Indonesia this time. Our next speaker will talk about Nusantara as new capital. I will introduce our speaker. um, Toha Salehe completed his undergraduate degree in the Department of Civil Engineering and the Faculty of Engineering of Universitas Indonesia in 1997. He obtained his master's degree in 2001 from the University of Surrey, Guildford, United Kingdom, and he received education and conducted research at the Université Technologie de Compiègne in France from 2001 to 2007. He was entrusted to run the Center for Water and Environmental Engineering Research at the Department of Civil Engineering in FTUI. And since 2005 until now, he has represented Universitas Indonesia as a university representative in the Indonesian University Network in the field of infrastructure. He's still active as a member of the Indonesian Hydraulic Engineering Experts Association and Indonesian Engineers Association, and he was then assigned as Deputy for University Development at the University Planning, Development and Control Agency of Universitas Indonesia. He's also head of the Subdirectorate of Supervision of the Directorate of Facility Management and Maintenance. Recently, he was trusted to be part of the working group team of the Deputy for Green and Digital Transformation of the Nusantara Capital Authority. As a lecturer, he teaches in the Department of Civil Engineering in FTUI with expertise in the field of water resources management. Several of his scientific works have been published, and some of them were presented at national and international seminars. To talk about Nusantara's new capital, let us all welcome Mr. Toha Saleh. Sir, you have the floor. You have 8 minutes. I'll warn you at 6 minutes when you have 2 minutes left. Please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tinio, from Ms. Nikki from the video. I would like to share my slides. Everyone already seen the slides?
We can see it, but not yet in presentation mode.
Yeah. I'm changing it to the presentation. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Toha Saleh. I'm very pleased to be able to speak in this forum, in this webinar, and I really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity from the committee of the 2024 AUN conference today. Okay, without further delay, I would like to talk about Nusantara as new capital. Maybe
Sir?
some of you heard that in the next 3 days, we will celebrate our Independence Day, actually in August 17, yeah. directly from the side, the Nusantara side, with the existing condition, of course, yeah, and then we are able to celebrate this event hopefully in the good condition, yeah, without any other delay or any other obstacles. Okay, again, I will show you the outline of the presentation. Yeah, I will talk about the Nusantara new capital city, and also the challenge and the opportunity that we have, and then also the sustainability of the future capital. Okay. So
Mr. Sorry, the slides are not moving, and I think it's not yet in presentation mode. We did not see the outline.
It's not moving.
Not moving. Yeah.
Is it okay in my slides here?
I think you're sharing the screen where we can still see the.
Try.
There. Yeah, wait, let's see.
Oh, okay. Share first. And share. But you did see the first slide, is it?
Yeah, now we can see the presentation outline. I think we can use this if you just move downwards. It's fine. We can see it.
No,
Yeah.
just.
Now we can see the plan, sustainability. Yeah.
What about now?
Still
What about?
loading. Yeah. I think we can work with this. We can see the slides. We'll just not look at the other parts. Can you see the next slide, boss, sir? Sir Toha?
Is it changing now?
No. Yeah, it's now on the presentation outline. The slide is now on the outline. Ah,
Yeah.
now we can see slide 4 and 5. Yeah.
Sorry. No, this actually. Sorry.
But we can work with this. We can see it. Yes.
No, okay.
All right. Yes, this works.
Sorry, I will start. So it's not supposed to be the screen, right?
Yeah, but it's okay. We can see it.
Okay. So I just missed my time. I think. Okay, we start with the plan. Okay. Actually, the initiative of the relocation of the capital actually already dreamt by the previous president, actually, from our first president, yeah, Sukarno, and then continue with the continuation of the current president from now with Jokowi. And we would like to move this capital because it will hopefully will trigger the economic target of the Indonesia in 2054, 44, 45, sorry. And then we also moved to the capital to more the Indonesian centrals rather than current situation, which is the more Japanese central. Yeah, and then this is why we have to demonstrate the idea of Indonesia centric instead of the Java centric. Okay, and sorry. Okay, we have this bit information about the location and the zones. Yeah, we separated the zones of the capital into 3 zones actually, and then we have the central zones, which is the central government zone. Yeah, it's less than 1,000 hectares, 10,000 hectares. Yeah, and then the other are the sporting area, which is what we call as the Nusantara Development Zone and also Nusantara Zone, yeah, as you seen in the picture. Okay, actually, and we have this vision of this new capital, which is the that we're moving it to the East Kalimantan, which is we already have 2 existing cities. Yeah, it is Balikpapan, yeah, and as industrial cities in East Kalimantan, and also the Samarinda as the capital of East Kalimantan province. Yeah, so we have vision as a global city for all. Yeah, whereas we have 3 main indicators for the vision. This is the word sustainable city, and then economic engine for Indonesia, and also national identity symbol. Yeah, of course, with some enablers that you may see in the screen. And one of them are actually we want to run the collaboration within the cities, Samarinda, Balikpapan, and also Nusantara. Yeah, to increase or improve our economic aspect. Okay, and also we would like to promote the sector for the future, especially in the technology, etc. Okay, Nusantara is a super hub actually. We have 6 cluster of economic clusters, yeah, with the clean technology industry cluster, integrated pharmaceutical cluster, sustainable agriculture, ecotourism, chemical products, and low carbon energy cluster, which support by 2 clusters, which are the 21st Century Education Center and also Smart City and Industrial 401 at current situation is Industry 401. Okay, this is the timeline of the development. We divided into 4 phases actually, starting from 2022 up to now, up to 2024. Yeah, we start to building the main infrastructure, and then the next phase for the next 5 years, yeah, from 2025 up to 2030, we will develop some other supporting infrastructure, and also already moving this public services and also the government employee to the capital. And then in 2035 up to 2045, we already plan to develop the more complexity, yeah, especially in the main zone. And then later down from 2045 and beyond, we already run the city completely. And of course, with the development surrounding the area and also the communities around. Also, we have the challenge that we transform the challenge into our opportunity. Actually, yeah. I think a lot of people already have some question regarding the threat. Yeah, comes when you try to develop or build a new area, especially in the forest area, which is Nusantara will be built in the industrial forest, not like the conservation forest or protected forest. Yeah. So there are some issues regarding deforestation, loss of biodiversity, etc., or even emission and pollution. So we will try to transform all these challenges into the opportunity and create the sustainability among it. And then the challenge is how to respond to this change positively, actually, and minimize the threats and provide skill, creative, innovative, and competitive generation. Yeah, because this must be run by the future generation, of course. And then we would like to create some useful research, yeah, and then also done to and social. The opportunities by from answering those challenges that we can create the city with the harmony with nature. This is the main design of the Nusantara, that we create the city that harmony with nature. And also we're realizing the net zero emission. As for your information, in the current situation, we forbid all of the gasoline or diesel vehicles, even the motorcycles, yeah, in the main zone of the Nusantara. Mostly, we only allowed the electrical vehicles like a bus for the public, of course, and also the motorcycles for the employees around the governmental area. And also, we implementing the new technology and innovation as a city efficiency, yeah, and then creating the resilient and livable city.
Last 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. So that's what we respond to the challenge and the opportunity, and then we transform it into actually three main concept of city that we have. We have the smart city, and also the forest city, and the swamp city. We mostly we absorb the most water that comes, from the rainfall, from the water of the ground or the rivers, and then also we have the forest that we will reforestation, and we reforest the forest area, and then we also have a smart city with some technology in it. So the sustainability actually stands on the 8 main principle. Yeah, as I mentioned before, that we design according to the nature, and then we have the principle of unity in diversity, which is our main principle, our nation principle, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, and then also we have this principle of connected, active, and accessible, low carbon emissions, circular and resilient, yeah, safe and accessible as well, security and efficiency through technology, and economic opportunities for all. And then from this main principle, we have three KPI, key performance indicator for each. Yeah, so we have total 24 KPI. And then some of the main area of the sustainability, because I'm working in the working group for the digital and green transformation deputy. So we will focus on the technology that will be used in the Nusantara. Yeah, some of them I will presented here, which is related to the smart water management, including the rainwater harvesting, because there's a lot of rain in the East Kalimantan, but unfortunately, at current situation, we don't have we don't have enough water reservoir. Yeah, and then also we have also the water flood management. Yeah, and then the flood risk management as well, which is already running at the current situation using the satellite and also the other technology. And we also have the smart waste and wastewater management, yeah, including we have the smart bin technology and also smart fleet, yeah, which is we using only the electrical trucks for the fleet to transport the waste from surrounding, yeah. And then we also have the platform or dashboard to monitor the waste distribution, etc. And then we also have already installed the early warning system, yeah, in specific zones, yeah, regarding the for the threat from the forest fire, of course, yeah, and also the flood as well. And for the pollution, we also already installed in some particular area about the monitoring system, yeah, using the automated weather station, which is will be put it in our command center, yeah, in the Nusantara Central, and then it can be interacted using the application from Nusantara. I will show you later. And then this is one of the tools that maybe you can also monitor the development of Nusantara in progress using this Montara application or platform, yeah, as well as the I-Know application as the digital information for those who work or involve or other stakeholders that involve with Nusantara. And also as maintain the sustainability we already produced. Of course, this is a result from our previous researches, regarding some issues, especially in smart building. We have the smart building guideline. We have Nusantara Biodiversity Management Master Plan as well. And then also we have the blueprint of the Nusantara. And we also have the Nusantara Net Zero Strategy, and then Nusantara Sustainable Development Goals, voluntary leads local review baseline. And all these books and guidelines can be downloaded free. Some already just in English, some is still in Bahasa Indonesia. Okay, for the closing, I would like to invite everyone, especially for Indonesian, to see the future of the new capital city of Indonesia with the same and correct perception, of course, in a positive way. Nusantara needs support from all stakeholders and also the wider community. And then together we can create the sustainable smart city, and the city can benefit to many people. And then this is one of the main target of our deputy, that to maximizing the technology as a learning tool and achieving efficiency of the city and Nusantara as the medium. I think that's all. This is some numbers from Nusantara. I can see it from the presentation, and then also a link of Nusantara motion or video. Maybe you can see it later from the presentation. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As someone from a city that has a lot of rain, a lot of flood, and still a water crisis, where many people might be interested to ask you questions later. But for now, I'll have to call the next speaker. Exploring the region further, we'll proceed to a presentation of urban housing in Kuala Lumpur. The presentation will be given by Dr. Siti Hafsa Zulkarnain, who is a senior lecturer at the Studies of Real Estate, School of Real Estate and Building Surveying of the College of Built Environment in University Technology Mara, Shah Alam in Selangor, Malaysia. She holds a PhD from University Technology Malaysia and Joint Supervision University of Tsukuba, Japan. In addition, she is a registered valuer, registered estate agent, and registered property manager, a member of the Royal Institution of Surveyors of Malaysia, a member of the Malaysian Institute of Property and Facility Managers, and a professional technologist. Actively as a researcher in the field of property valuation, property management, housing, and disaster management, the speaker will share findings of research, her findings from her research, which have been presented and published in leading journals and conferences at the national and international levels. Ladies and gentlemen, let us please all welcome, with a virtual round of applause, Senior Lecturer Dr. Siti Hafsa Binti Zulkarnain for her talk on sustainable housing and community redevelopment in Malaysia. You have the floor, and I'll warn you when you have 2 minutes left. Oh, you're still on mute, but we can see your presentation. We have to unmute Dr. Siti.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nikki. Okay, can I have my presentations? I control myself because I did some amendment on my slide. Is it okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, everyone, can you see through the slide?
Not yet. I think it's loading.
Yeah.
Now we can see something on our screen.
Is it okay now, Dr. Nikki?
Yes, but it's not on. Yeah, now it's okay. Yes.
Now it's okay. Is it full screen?
Yes, it's full screen now.
Yeah, okay, good. So I will continue on my topics on the sustainability, housing and community redevelopment in Malaysia. So this is the introduction about myself. You already briefed on myself just now on the introductions. So as the introductions, the sustainable housing and community redevelopment in Malaysia is a growing focus in urban planning, architecture, and environmental policy. So the concept aims to create living spaces that are environmentally friendly economically viable and socially inclusive. So if we go through the slide, there is a diagram here. We can see that the sustainable housing is a combination of two components. One is the sustainability dimensions, consists of economics, environmental, institutional, social, and one more component is on the housing components that consists of building, community, and locality. I'm not sure why. Oh, okay. I need to stop the subtitles. Okay. No, it's okay, Dr. Nikki, because just now I just noticed there is a subtitle appear on the screen.
Oh, we can.
Is it?
It's fine. It looks fine now.
Oh, is everything okay? Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, so as a presentation outline, I will focus on the five content here. First is on the Sustainable Housing Initiative. Number 2 is on the community redevelopment. Number 3 is on the environmental considerations. And number 4 is on the challenges and opportunity. And the last is the government policies and regulations. Okay, first things on the green building standard for the Sustainable Housing Initiative that we have in Malaysia. We are focusing on the green building standard that consists of the implementations of the Green Building Index or the GBI, and also the Malaysian Carbon Reductions and Environmental Sustainability Tools that we call it as a MICRAS. This standard is encourage the energy efficient design, use of sustainable materials and reductions of carbon footprints in housing project. And number 2, in Malaysia, we also having a affordable housing project, meaning that the Malaysian government introduced the various programs to provide the affordable housing while integrating the sustainable practices for all the Malaysian citizens. And the number 3 is on the smart cities. This is the initiative by the government also. For example, that we have, if Indonesia, we have the Nusantara. In Malaysia, we have the Smart City Initiative by the government. We call it as a Iskandar Malaysia Smart City. So for example, this is the Malaysian Green Building Councils. We have what we call as a roadmap initiative from the year of 2021 until the year 2025. This initiative is conceived of 3 main focus. For example, we have focus on the climate actions and also on the health and well-being. And number 3 is on the resources and security. Okay, just now I mentioned to you regarding the affordable housing scheme in Malaysia. Actually, we have 5 main affordable housing that we have in Malaysia. One, we call it as a Perumahan Penjawat Awam Malaysia or PPAM. This consists of, this aim is to enable the civil servant, particularly the young civil servant who don't own a house with a salary under 10,000 ringgit for the individuals to purchase the quality of home with size of ranging from 850 to 1,500 square feet. And the number 2 is the Perumahan Rakyat Satu Malaysia or the Prima House. The Prima homes are designed for middle income earners with development located in prime locations with good access to amenities and public transportations, so they can be purchased as your first or second home only. And number 3, the Malaysian government also introduced the My First Home scheme or the Scheme Rumah Pertamaku or SRP. For this scheme is for the first time home buyers earning a gross monthly household income up to 10,000 ringgit per month. Okay, and number 4 is for the Residency Wilayah Keluarga Malaysia or Rumah WIP. This is focusing for the affordable housing for the individuals and the middle income who's staying within the locality of Wilayah Persekutuan Kuala Lumpur Local Authority. And number 5 is the My Selangor Homes or Rumah Selangorku. And My Selangor Homes is focused on the locals' home for the low medium cost homes and the medium cost home for low to medium income household living in Selangor. So actually this is the 5 initiative from the Malaysian government to make sure that all the citizens of Malaysia afford to have their own house, especially for the youngsters and also for the first home buyers. So the initiatives, the 5 initiative is actually designed to make sure that the locations, the developments meet the needs of the citizen in Malaysia. Okay, and next, what we have here, Cannot. The screen is stuck. Is it moved? The screen
Yeah,
is
it's not moving. No, it did not move. Yeah.
yeah, it's not moving, right? I think
No,
it's
no. Yeah.
wait for a while. I'm not sure what happens to the slide.
But I also have to warn you of the last 2 minutes. So sorry.
Oh yeah. I make it fast. I don't know what happened. Okay. So
There,
the
it's moving.
that we have in Malaysia, just now I mentioned to you, we have also the smart cities. We call it as the Iskandar Malaysia, that located at the Iskandar Malaysia at the Johor Bahru state. At the southern part of Malaysia, we call it as Johor. And the development is encompassed of 221 634 hectare. So this is the area of the Iskandar Malaysia. And then also we have the number 2 on the community redevelopment. So what we have here, we have the urban renewal project. We transforming the historical urban village of Kampung Baru. If you can see here is the KLCC Twin Tower. So within the locality of Kuala Lumpur, we have what we call as the historical urban village. We call it as a Kampung Baru. So we move the Kampung Baru to the new urban center in Kuala Lumpur for the purpose of redevelopment. Okay, and then at the same time, we also consider on the environmental considerations. We have what we call as the energy efficiency. So the energy is focusing on environment, economy, and social. Okay, so this is the sustainable framework for the low carbon cities in Malaysia, because we don't have enough time. So at last, for the challenges and opportunity, for the purpose of land use, actually the Malaysian government trying to balance up the need of development and also the natural preservations of the habitat and also the agricultural lands, and also the investment and the funding of the investment for the purpose of housing and redevelopment project often requires significant investment from various developers and all the stakeholders. And number 3 is on the public awareness and educations to increase the understanding of the national citizen about the sustainability living practice among the publics. And the last, the government policies and regulations that we have in Malaysia is really support the sustainability concept in housing and development. The national policy that we have, we call it as the regarding from the SDG and the new urban area that we have in Malaysia. We plan, there is 3 strategies on the urban and also housing planning to make sure that the new urban policy that we develop and the new urban area that we consider that we plan in Malaysia are aligned with the SDG that will apply around the world. Okay, so as a conclusions, sustainable housing and community redevelopment in Malaysia are integral to the country visions for a greener and more inclusive future. With ongoing effort from both the government and private sector, Malaysia is making significant strides towards achieving sustainable urban environment that cater to the needs of all citizens. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nikki. I think I need to do it fast.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we've had 3 presenters who talked about 3 different local governments, one in the Philippines, one in Indonesia, and one in Malaysia. We'll shift a little bit. Our last speaker has young urbanists of Southeast Asian view of things. I'll introduce to you the speaker, Charlie Colasurdo is an American urbanist and developer. He graduated from Duke University and Duke Kunshan University with a dual degree in political economy and public policy. Charlie's passion for cities has led him to work in various sectors, including in tourism in Ho Chi Minh City, urban planning consultancy in Bangkok, and real estate development in Durham, North Carolina. His senior capstone, Street Food City, A Future for Culinary Tourism in 21st Century Bangkok, explored the relationship between the built environment, policy, tourism, and street food culture in modern Bangkok. Charlie serves as Vice President for External Affairs at Young Urbanists of Southeast Asia, or UC, a new pan-Southeast Asian network dedicated to fostering the next generation of city builders in the region. To talk about, can we save our cities? Building a community of young urbanists for Southeast Asia. Let's all welcome Mr. Charlie Colasurdo. Charlie, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carsi Cruz, for the introduction and to my previous panelists. Are we able to start the slideshow? I think that, awesome.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, as you mentioned, and thank you for the introduction, my name is Charlie Colasurdo, and I'm so excited to present to you today on the topic, Can We Save Our Cities? Building a Community of Young Urbanists for Southeast Asia. Next slide, please. So how do you mainstream sustainability in Southeast Asia? From our perspective, we believe that the next generation holds a key piece of the puzzle. UC is a young organization, both in its relatively recent formation, as of the end of last year, and in the age of its members, from ages 15 to 34. Our founders, Joshua Vargas from the Philippines and Dang Dao Nguyen from Vietnam, both recognize that ASEAN's future increasingly lies both in the hands of its cities and its youth. Both urbanization and a growing youth population are converging, with ASEAN cities playing significant roles on the global stage as economic, diplomatic, and cultural hubs. From Bangkok to Manila to Jakarta, these emerging megacities are hosting growing proportions of population and GDP. They're also at the forefront of our most pressing and complex challenges, including the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. These opportunities and challenges facing Southeast Asian cities are immense. They require the examination through interdisciplinary lenses of policy, design, technology, among others. As a region that's often lumped in with the rest of the world, Southeast Asia has been historically neglected and undervalued, particularly in Western academia, businesses, and discourse, who often overlook the region's significant contributions to history and the global network of cities. As we said, there's a shortage of resources dedicated to the cohesive study of cities in Southeast Asia and a disproportionate lack of global engagement with these regions, particularly by students. UC was founded with the understanding that we must educate and empower this next generation, from policymakers to planners, architects to advocates, with the tools to address these challenges. Next slide, please. I chose this quote because it's from a reading. At my university, we only had one class in Southeast Asia. And for me, it kind of highlights the region's rich urban traditions. But knowing this would kind of come as a surprise to people with a Eurocentric educational background. For someone like me, who's both a product of the American educational system and has also spent significant time in Southeast Asia, I find this extremely frustrating. So I joined UC because, in short, it's time that ASEAN cities got the attention they deserved, particularly from the generation that will one day lead them. Next slide. Our vision is threefold. First, we aim to build a pan-Southeast Asian network of people interested in Southeast Asian urbanism. We've intentionally opened membership to any nationality, asking only that our members be committed to the academic, professional, and personal development and working in the region. Second, we aspire to attract a diversity of viewpoints, professional backgrounds, and identities. We understand cities to be unifying elements in people's lives. Everyone has a stake in accessible mobility, affordable housing, and safety, and our membership is reflective of this. And third, we wanted to build an intergenerational connection between youth and senior city makers. We have so much to learn from both current and former urban leaders, and we want to be the connective tissue that helps transmit knowledge and generate new ideas across generations. Next slide, please. Since our founding, we've established an organizational structure focused on external affairs, internal affairs, events and sponsorship, research, and communications. When we opened our applications for membership late last year, we were overwhelmed with interest from youth across the world. We've since built a core team of 37 members from 13 countries across 3 continents. Operating in a hybrid format, we have an online community that shares networking, education, and employment opportunities. This past spring, we hosted our first panel in collaboration with Yale and US College in Singapore, titled Urban Experimentation in Southeast Asia, Novel Solutions to Emerging Challenges. Our panelists included a software engineer from an electric tuk-tuk rideshare company in Bangkok and the head of a participatory urban planning design practice in Singapore, among others. Additionally, we launched our first networking event series, beginning with How do you advance your career in urban planning, focusing on professional advancement in urban design careers and planning, led by industry experts. Additionally, we recently received a grant to launch our podcast, Urban Innovation, which will focus on innovative ideas for emerging cities in Southeast Asia. It will highlight solutions, both big and small, for the complex challenges faced by rapidly urbanizing regions. We're really excited to begin hosting world-renowned experts, passionate practitioners in areas like data-driven planning, regenerative design, AI, and more. Next slide, please. This is just a slide from our most recent event held in conjunction with Yale and US in Singapore, hosted in a hybrid format. Next slide. So our challenges include, we're creating a startup networking organization from scratch. In the past year, we've recruited our inaugural cohort from a wide range of backgrounds, which means that we have to establish a common ground to operate effectively. Most of us come with varying levels of familiarity with the terminology, practices, and key figures in this effort to build better cities. So we're developing a shared understanding of urban studies, but adapted to the ASEAN context. And moreover, as a volunteer organization, We're juggling roles as students and young professionals. I'm currently calling in for it's about midnight on my time. We're working across 3 continents, coordinating in-person, hybrid, and virtual programming. And I'm particularly excited about the increased focus on in-person events, including the spontaneous meetups of our members that have already occurred in Bangkok, Singapore, and beyond. Next slide, please. As we look to our second year, we're ramping up programming and working to establish partnerships with universities, NGOs, and businesses. Our next event is a webinar on ASEAN's transition to low-carbon cities and meaningful youth inclusion. We're also in the process of building an advisory board of figures in urban studies throughout Southeast Asia, including representatives and experts from government, business, and civil society. From scholars on the Belt and Road Initiative's high-speed rail projects to experts on how micromobility shapes Vietnam's urban streetscapes, these members will provide invaluable support as we move forward. We're also committed to creating physical chapters in major ASEAN cities, including Singapore and Bangkok. These chapters will host meetings, events, and outings designed to expand our outreach to youth. In my role, I'm particularly excited about expanding opportunities for institutions in the United States to partner with and share university resources with their Southeast Asian counterparts. My own university, Duke, has recently expressed sustained interest in building a relationship with universities in Thailand, and I'm excited to see how we can develop programming in conjunction with UC that focuses on the urban realm, particularly within the context of urban resilience and climate change. Next slide, please. I appreciate the opportunity to share UC's story with you, and I'm grateful to my fellow panelists and the organizers of AUN-EEC. If you'd like to learn more about us or get involved, you can visit us at uc.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And so we have a question that's addressed to all panelists. I'm going to read this question that was written by Dimfna Javier of UP Baguio. She says, for all of you panelists, or for all the panelists, is there generally regarded a good balance in terms of area between natural green spaces and developed spaces? So I guess the question is, what is an ideal for each one of you in your contexts? Is there an ideal proportion that you're targeting or envisioning for I don't know, a smart city, a sustainable city? Sir Emmanuel, maybe we'll start with you because I know you have to go very soon. What do you see a good proportion in mind? What is an ideal balance in terms of green areas and developed areas? Oh no, you have to unmute. Sorry. Yeah, we can't hear you. Sorry, we have to unmute the speakers. Yeah, there. It's. I saw it briefly that you were unmuted. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
unmuted.
there. Well, thank you. That's a very interesting question. It's very important that the planning departments are involved. Particular to Quezon City, we have 6 districts, and the landscape of each district is very different. One of the things for Metro Manila, we're the only capital with 16 cities within the major capital. And that's why issues on planning with regard to common concerns such as flooding, traffic, air pollution needs to have a larger context. We are made of 7,100 islands, and such that the context of Quezon City and Metro Manila is very different again. So it's really hard to pinpoint a single formula. And that's why in the process of this, we need to create a top-down and bottom-up approach in trying to understand what is the right ratio with regard to this. But for example, in Quezon City, we're a highly urbanized city. We still hold where the watershed is. We're actually blessed to still have open spaces relative to the others. So, but the idea of we need to involve the stakeholders, you know, we need to talk to our constituents, really come up deeply. And I think this is where universities really come in. Local governments need guidance, evidence-based studies in influencing policies and programs. I think that's where a lot of local governments need that help. And not only sourcing it locally, but even international research studies, which we're actually doing here in Quezon City. Thank you.
How about in Indonesia, Mr. Toha?
I mean, can you repeat the question? I mean, I thought this.
Yeah, the question is, what is your envisioned good balance between green spaces and developed spaces? So I think in your smart city, how is that distribution?
Yeah, of course, especially in these new capital city, as I mentioned, the most challenging issues is that we start from the forest area, right? So that's actually we need to reserve, still reserving the green area. And then we will have to relocate the forest, the industrial forest, yeah, actually, into some area. But I think that's why that's the idea of the new capital here. And then if you see the video that I attached in the presentation, it will show the imaginary setting of the Nusantara, which is already blended with the nature, of course, because we already declare that we will create the net zero emission for the city. I think that's all.
Okay, and then Dr. City. Oh, the mute. Please unmute Dr. City. It's funny in the chat box, people were so inspired by Indonesia having the capital elsewhere, or I think that's the same case in Malaysia. That they said, "Sana in the," they were hoping in the Philippines also they'd move the capital elsewhere, and then Dr. Toha was saying not to be too Java centric, and that's why you moved it to East Kalimantan, and maybe we should be stop also being so Manila centric in the Philippines. At least that's the sentiment in the chat box. Can we unmute Dr. City, please? Yeah. Oh no, it's timeout. Okay, never mind. So maybe I'll move to Charlie. Yeah, now it's unmuted. Yay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, because of the microphone is not unmute. Okay, for Malaysia, what I shared just now is we have one smart city we call it as Iskandar, Malaysia. Actually, in that township, we have a combinations of certain type of land use. For example, a certain area we allocate for the, if you can see the development of the Iskandar, Malaysia, certain area we allocate for the green area. And also we have the Lego land at the Iskandar, Malaysia. And then we also reserve some area for the education for the high institutional. And then there is certain area for the government's administration office. And also we have area for the educations and also for the all the facilities, for like example, hospitals, schools, and so on. So that is the combinations of the land use that we plan in that kind of smart city to make sure that they can cater not only for the Johor Bahru, but also the near other countries, for example, Singapore and other state in Malaysia as well. Okay, thank you, Dr. Nikki.
Yes. I think the spirit of this question is, how do we protect against runaway development? Because we don't want our cities to become overdeveloped again. So thank you for sharing the formulas or the plans that you have. Charlie, would you like to jump in and answer the question too?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a dichotomy between cities built from scratch and master plan versus cities that have grown organically. Most of my experience has been in Bangkok, which is somewhat chaotic from a development and design standpoint. But what they've done really well in recent years is adaptive reuse of existing land and parcels. So Benja Kitty Forest Park, for example, was the former headquarters of the Thai tobacco monopoly, and it was essentially a large open space that sat fallow for several years. The government came in and turned it into a forest ecological park. Really a stunning example of what you can do with, an adaptive reuse of a situation. Governor Chadchart has announced a 15-minute park or pocket park campaign to kind of reforest, disused lots across the city. So taking a look at what you have, taking stock of what exists when you can't necessarily build from scratch is super important. And I'll link in an article the New York Times just did about that large park in Bangkok.
Is there a formula that's a good target that is measurable? Because we can write things like we want zero emission, then your target. Is there a proportion that's a target?
I think in
Or
my
we don't
view,
need these
I
tools?
would think less about coverage and more about access, whether that's every citizen being within a predetermined period of walk or public transit from a park. So maybe we call that a 15-minute city or 15-minute walk to a park is maybe a lofty aspiration, but I think it's critical. is giving people the access to that green space, particularly in places that deal with air pollution, extreme heat, all of that.
So the question from the audience, another question here is, could Mr. Toha Saleh, you presented technology-based solutions for developing Nusantara as a smart city. Could you also maybe share an example of nature-based solutions to manage the risks, like mitigating climate risks or environmental risks? Are there nature-based solutions alongside the technology-based solutions? This is one question.
Yeah. At current situation, I mean, we have this one of the cluster. Actually, that we have two clusters, as I mentioned earlier, about the eco-friendly cluster. Yeah. At present, I cannot explain at the moment because we have some divisions regarding the object of the study. But of course, we have this example of the use of these natural foods. Yeah, I mean from the current plantations. Yeah, we already tried to make use of some supporting buildings or supporting infrastructure. Yeah, and then we will reduce the use of the carbon and phosphorus.
And we also have a question for Sir Emmanuel Velasco. First of all, there was a commendable collaboration, cooperation, all those superlative praise. But then the question was, based on your experience, what are your key recommendations on how to effectively initiate, increase, and maintain active participation of community members of all ages for the sustainability of your food project? This was from Raquel Barcelo of UP Baguio. Sir Velasco?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to pursuing sustainability is that these ideas seem to be very technical or high level. What we need to do in government is try, or even the academy, is how do we make it more practical and local, right? Something that's easily digested. Because the buy-in and the commitment of the constituents and the people is more important in making things sustainable. It was just in a way maybe providence or luck that first of all, when we talk about food, it's a concern of everybody, right? The environment is pretty tough to sell in a way of why am I thinking of planting a tree where my first concern is where do I get my next meal? Okay. But as you see, that entry point has been a blessing to our city, in that now that they've understood what sustainability means in the context of food, they are now open to relate to environmental issues, such as what we're doing as composting, taking care of nature, taking away plastics and all that. So really, it takes a long time to do a participative and consultative approach in approaching the problem. Let's not forget to involve them in the process from the start. Most of the time, we're already at the execution, implementation, and that's where I see the failure, right? We need to involve them to be part of the solution. It is just fortunate, at least for Quezon City, that during the height of the pandemic, I know the pandemic has been very difficult for a lot, but a silver lining here is that we were able to stop and come together to talk about certain issues. But here in the Philippines, we just recently experienced a heat wave. Okay, and then also El Nino and now a La Nina. So excessive heat and excessive water. And the nature-based solutions in order to reduce heat is simply plant more trees. Okay, allow space, for trees to grow because they have a function in cleaning the air, biodiversity, and all that. And that's where the consciousness and advocating it and repeatedly doing it again and again. But again, we also tried and have to create small wins. Okay. because large concepts are always broken down into small elements. And if they don't see it in the small elements, how can they buy into the larger element of it all? So again, involve the community, and they'll tell you if that's a top priority in their list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There were questions in the chat that for Charlie, for instance, that he already answered in the chat. Thank you, Charlie, for doing that. And thank you very much, Mr. Velasco, as I know you had to go, but you stayed on for the open forum. We have run out of time, unfortunately, and I know that the presentations of the panelists are rich in detail that you might really want to ask them more. Maybe we can continue the conversation asynchronously. That's one of the legacies of online and everything. We can have conversations that are going on even if they're not synchronous. So now it's time we present on screen our formal way of thanking our speakers certificates of appreciation. Thank you once again, Mr. Velasco, Mr. Salad, Dr. Sulcarnain, and Mr. Colasurdo for sharing your insights in this panel. It was a bountiful morning, very packed, and our discussions will continue in the afternoon for now. We will have to call a speaker to do the closing remarks to wrap up our morning's presentations. May I call on Professor Dr. Engineer Ahmad Herman Yumuno, Secretary of the Interdisciplinary Engineering Research Unit and Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Indonesia. Let's please welcome him with a big round of applause for his closing remarks. Dr. Yumuno?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nikki, for the invitation. Actually, I'm here on behalf of Professor Dr. Widodo as the head of Interdisciplinary Engineering Research Units. So let me convey his message to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we draw to the close of the 2024 AUN-EEC Conference on Ecological Education and Culture, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to all of you for your participation, engagement, and enthusiasm throughout this event. We have had the privilege of exploring a rich array of discussion and presentations that have truly embodied our theme, Rewilding the City. Each session has offered insights and innovative ideas that are crucial as we seek to reconnect our urban environments with nature. Our panel discussion with speakers from Southeast Asian countries was inspiring. From the participatory approaches in the Grow QC and at the enhancing food security and community health, we have seen the power of inclusive development. The plans for Nusantara as Indonesia's new capital have highlighted the potential for creating sustainable urban spaces from the ground up. The insights into sustainable housing and community redevelopment in Malaysia have highlighted the importance of adaptive and resilient housing solutions. Finally, the call to build a community of young urbanists in Southeast Asia has shown us the imperative of empowering the next generation to take the reins in urban planning and sustainability. This conference has reinforced the critical importance of integrating ecological principles into our urban landscapes. It is evident that the challenges we face today, from climate change to urban sprawl, require holistic and collaborative solutions. Our collective efforts in rewilding our cities are not just about restoring green spaces, but about creating vibrant, resilient communities where people and nature coexist harmoniously. As we return to our respective cities and communities, I urge each of us to take the knowledge and inspiration gained here and apply it our daily work. Let us be advocates of ecological education and in culture, advocating for sustainable practices in urban planning and fostering a deeper connection between our cities and the natural world. The future of our cities depend on the actions we take today, and each small step can lead to significant change. Remember, the journey to rewild our cities are a marathon, not a sprint. Every tree planted, every community garden established, every policy advocating for green spaces bring us closer to our goal. We have the power to transform our urban landscapes into thriving ecosystems that support both human and environmental health. In closing, I want to once again thank the organizers, speaker, panelists, and all participants for making this conference a remarkable success. Your dedication and passion are the driving forces behind the positive change we seek. Let us continue to stay connected, collaborate, and inspire each other as we move forward. Safe travels to all, and I look forward to seeing the incredible progress we will undoubtedly achieve together. Thank you and farewell until we meet again. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much, Dr. Iwano, for your closing remarks. As he says, it's really not the end of their conversation. We will continue. This is not really goodbye. It's see you later because we're just taking a break. We have our reminders. In the afternoon, we will have 4 parallel sessions. And you can join a session. You can use the same Zoom link that we're using for this plenary link after lunch. When you join the room, there will be 4 breakout rooms to choose from. And you can kindly refer to the book of abstracts for the lineup of talks. As the talks are synchronous, you may customize your afternoon plan and move from one room to another depending on your interest. The 4 sessions are on ecological issues in the city, that's session 1. Cities as pedagogical space, that's session 2. Smart cities, urban resilience and sustainability, that's session 3. And finally, trends in urban sustainability, that is session 4. Again, to all our presenters, you may submit your full manuscript for publication in the special issue of CSID Journal of Infrastructure Development, which is a peer-reviewed NOAC's indexed journal. You may submit your papers until the end of September. The AUN-EEC Secretariat will also send you emails regarding this after the conference. So the parallel sessions will run from 2 o'clock to 5 p.m. in Manila time, 1 o'clock to 4 p.m. in Jakarta and Bangkok time. We ask our presenters to join us by 1:30 p.m. And so this is the end. Please enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much for taking part in this continuing conversation, a 5-year conversation now. See you again next year. Bye, everybody. Have a good lunch. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bless you.
Bye. Yeah.
Thank you.
See you again.
Thank you.
Proper man.
Yeah. Matoha. All the best, Matoha.
Thank you, Nikki. You can stop recording now. Our host, please.
Hello. We have okay, we have put everyone else in the waiting room, I think. Okay, thank you for a successful morning run. Thank you, Dr. Nikki, for your time.
Sorry, ano may nagtanong ng title ng journal? Si Sinaida Bawanan of UP
okay,
Baguio.
okay.
Pakisagot lang, pero sa waiting room na siya. Nako,
okay,
kulang naman ang time, pasensya na.
No, it's okay. I mean, yung sa presentation, yeah, it's okay. I think
Okay.
the insights are presented well and interesting and pique the interest of our audience. So no problem
Okay.
with that.
All
And some
right.
technical difficulties also.
Yeah, I
Hi,
was
City
scared
and
of you moving.
Mustika.
Okay. Yay! Thank you. Hello. So